Good morning, everyone. I'm Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley. I still have my mask on, so I'm going to be taking that off so you can better hear me this morning, but good morning. Welcome to the inaugural Illegal Dumping Conference. This is a tremendous undertaking that we are putting on today. And, we have over 600 people who have registered for the 3-day conference from throughout the state. And I'm very pleased that we have participants from the industry, from governmental sectors, from the private sector, from community-based organizations and other concerned citizens and parties. So this effort to try to address illegal dumping is something that affects us all. It has no boundaries. Illegal dumping, as one of my supporters says, is a crime against the community, and we need to address it because illegal dumping affects rural communities, it affects suburban communities, and it affects urban communities. So I'm really pleased with the Illegal Dumping Task Force for hosting and putting on today's conference and my efforts to try to spearhead this with my staff. So once again, welcome you all to our inaugural Illegal Dumping Conference. I would like to take a moment to thank our title sponsor. Our title sponsor is California Waste Solutions, Zero Waste Specialist. We're very pleased to have them sponsor to be the title sponsor for this inaugural conference. I have known the proprietors of California Waste Solutions for many years. I served on the Oakland City Council back in the 1990s, and I've been a county supervisor for the last 20+ years. And so California Waste Solutions is a very key partner in our efforts at addressing illegal dumping throughout the region. So thank you, California Waste Solutions, for being our title sponsor. I'd like to also thank our other sponsors. We're very pleased to have a number of other sponsors. We have Waste Management, which has been another company that I've been associated with for many years as an elected official, as well as, they provide the service in my community, Waste Management. So thank you so very much, Waste Management, for being one of our sponsors. AB&I Foundry. AB&I Foundry is one of our sponsors as well, and they actually work closely with us on our efforts at addressing illegal dumping through our pilot program in East Oakland. Another sponsor, two other sponsors we have is Nixit Junk Removal. So thank you, Nixit, for being a sponsor at the enforcement level. We're very pleased to have you help sponsor this conference. And the Mattress Recycling Council, they've been a member of our efforts to address illegal dumping since day one. We started this effort around addressing illegal dumping probably about 3 years ago. We had a working group, then we kind of evolved into a task force, and then it evolved into a statewide effort, particularly once we had to postpone our conference from 2020 due to the pandemic to this year to have a virtual conference. So the Mattress Recycling Council, they've been with us all along this journey. And then we have a couple of community sponsors, the Beautification Council. They're out there, they're boots on the ground, working with us. They've been involved with this since the inception. And in fact, it was the Beautification Council that really got me going on the efforts of illegal dumping, because I really thought it was an isolated issue and concern, and they definitely enlightened me that this is not just an isolated concern of one jurisdiction or one area. It's a concern that affects multiple jurisdictions, and it's an issue that needs to be addressed comprehensively and globally. And finally, our other community sponsors, the California Product Stewardship Council, of which they've worked with me extensively in the past. In fact, the California Product Stewardship Council worked with me back in 2012 when the County Board of Supervisors here in Alameda County passed the first ordinance of its type to address pharmaceuticals and the need for proper disposal of medications when they expire and are no longer wanted. And the California Product Stewardship Council, they were our consultants on that and have provided leadership and worked with us ever since. So thank you, California Product Stewardship Council, for being a sponsor. So thank all of our sponsors for helping us this year to launch this inaugural conference. Now for a few housekeeping matters. How to ask questions of the panelists and the presenters. Use the QA feature at the bottom of your Zoom window. What if you miss a presentation? Well, if you miss a presentation, it's being recorded and will be sent to all registered attendees after the conference concludes. And what if there are questions, comments, concerns? Well, if there are, please email Erin Armstrong. She's on my staff, and that email appears on your screen. It's erin.armstrong@acgov.org. Those are our housekeeping matters for the moment. And obviously, since this is a virtual conference, if you need to get up, stretch your legs, grab something to eat, take a little break, go to the restroom, feel free to do that. Now for an overview of the conference schedule, the illegal dumping conference schedule. It's a 3-day conference. We've broken it down into 3 days, 3 hours each day. We felt that would be most appropriate. And actually, we had a team of folks who are part of the illegal dumping task force throughout the state, working with us on putting the conference together. And so we thought 3 days would be appropriate. The first day is education. We have a speaker, panelists, and we have an opportunity for people to ask questions, and there'll be a wrap-up. Day 2 is focused on eradication, and we have a legislative block. We have spotlight on what we've been doing here in Alameda County, particularly with our pilot in Oakland. And then we have a whole panel around eradication. And then on the third day, we have enforcement. And enforcement is extremely important because we can do education, we can do eradication, but if there's no enforcement, if there are no consequences for bad behavior, then we're just providing a service and we're chasing our tails. So the third day is enforcement. And we have a very exciting panel for enforcement. Closing remarks will be presented, and then we'll also have a wrap up and post-conference breakout for people just to kind of get together and talk about how things went. So those are our 3 days in terms of overview, basically 9 to 12 each of the 3 days. Now for today's conference schedule, let's talk about that. Well, I'm giving you the overview with some opening remarks, and I will also introduce our keynote speaker this morning, who will be the District Attorney for Alameda County, the Honorable Nancy O'Malley. She will be our keynote speaker, and Nancy, her office has worked very, very closely with us on our efforts at addressing illegal dumping. We could not have done this without the District Attorney's Office, as well as the Alameda County Sheriff's Department, working with us on the enforcement end. Then we will have an introduction to the 3 E's. We'll have an opportunity to take a break. And even though these things are broken into 15-minute segments, things might go a little longer or a little shorter, but we'll keep things moving along. And then we'll have a block around education, and it's an exciting block of education panelists and speakers to introduce education, talk about the proper disposal of resources, how it'll also hit on working solutions and things that we do with young people, how they can get engaged as well. And we'll also look at the social disorders in terms of how illegal dumping is an indicator of social disorder. And trust me, it definitely is. And then we'll have a panel discussion that'll talk about upstream solutions as well. So we have a full first day focused on education. And then at the end of the first day, I'll do a quick wrap up. So that's kind of our first day. We hope it meets your needs, your desires, and I hope you find it informative. So once again, thank you for joining us this morning for the kickoff of the inaugural Illegal Dumping Conference. And I really want to just thank my office, and particularly Aaron Armstrong, for spearheading this, working with all of the committee to make the conference happen. Now, I think we're moving right along very nicely. We might even be a little ahead of schedule. And as I can see, we've got over 300 participants on the conference joining us so far throughout the state. So thank you. And hopefully more will come on board too. As I said, we have about 600 registrants. So let me just introduce our keynote speaker, the Honorable Nancy O'Malley, who is the District Attorney for Alameda County. Nancy O'Malley is the Alameda County District Attorney and is the first woman to serve as Alameda County's District Attorney. DA O'Malley is a national and statewide leader known for her innovation and vision. She has written more than 50 bills that have become law in California. DA O'Malley has received numerous prestigious awards for her leadership, including the ABA Margaret Brent Award, the Lois Haight Award of Excellence and Innovation Award from the United States Congress, the James Irvine Leadership Award. And this is just to name a few of the awards and accolades she's received as the DA. Her contributions to the community, to the state of California, and to the country are numerous and significant. You know, I've known Nancy, DA O'Malley, for many, many, many years, and I constantly say she's on the cutting edge, doing many, many things, working with the county, working with her colleagues in the law enforcement community, both locally and throughout the state, just taking on any number of initiatives and at the forefront. So I'm really pleased once again that her office is working very, very closely with us on illegal dumping. And as I said, quite frankly, we couldn't have achieved the success we've achieved without her support and that of the Alameda County Sheriff's Department. So DA O'Malley, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Supervisor. I'm really honored to be here because, like all of you, I believe that illegal dumping is a major problem on a lot of fronts. So first, I do want to start by thanking Supervisor Nate Miley for organizing the efforts to stop illegal dumping in our county, in Alameda County. Under his leadership and his excellent team of committed individuals, the Alameda County Illegal Dumping Task Force was formed a few years ago. And while it started as a pilot, it is now a matter of consistent business and community strategies to stop illegal dumping. And by doing so, Alameda County is leading the way. I'd also like to express my thanks to Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan for her leadership in Sacramento. She not only carried a bill, but also secured funding for the task force. While the bill was not successful, the funding did come through, and it's allowed us to go even further than we had hoped when we first started talking about the efforts of the task force. Assemblymember Bauer-Cahan is a former environmental lawyer and an advocate, and she understands the negative impacts of illegal dumping that has on a community and on the environment and to the well-being of our neighborhoods. I also want to take a moment to thank Aaron Armstrong, who works for and with Supervisor Miley. All of his staff is really, they're excellent members of the community and public servants. But I particularly want to thank Aaron for her work on this task force and especially on putting this conference together. Well done, Aaron. And my praise and thanks to Elise Sambach, who's the Deputy District Attorney in my office assigned to our Environmental Protection Unit and to this task force. Elise, I appreciate your commitment to addressing all issues that impact our environment and especially for your work and leadership on the illegal dumping task force. And while we have many, many partners who have come together to work on this issue, I want to give a special shout out to Ken Houston. Ken is out in the streets every day, shining a light on illegal dumping and rolling up his sleeves to clean up the streets and our neighborhoods. You'll hear from Ken later in the conference, and I'm sure you'll agree that his commitment to Oakland and to this issue is inspiring. As I said, my office and I are very proud to be partners in these events, along with other public agencies, nonprofits, businesses, and especially our community members who care about the health, the welfare, and the well-being of those living in our community. We also care deeply about the environment and the aesthetic impacts of illegal dumping. Now, on occasion, I hear, what's the big deal if garbage is dumped on someone else's street, or if in their yard, or in an open field, or along a waterway or stream? We have real crime to deal with. Well, my response is generally, let's be clear. Illegal dumping is a real crime that carries real punishment. Many violations carry a financial penalty, which can be as high as $10,000 if the dumping is done by a commercial company. And under California law, some violations could lead to jail time. But I also want to be very clear. Our goal is not to put people in jail, but to stop them from illegal dumping. And even more than illegal dumping being against the law, illegal dumping can have a significant impact on most ways that we don't often think about. So let me talk a little bit about the obvious wrongs associated with illegal dumping. We see urban blight. We see the quality of life for those living in impacted neighborhoods go down. We see public health risks. We see risks to individual safety as well as to public safety. And we see environmental impacts on urban, suburban neighborhoods, as well as our open spaces in our rural areas. And what we don't often think about are the fiscal impacts to cities and counties, leading to higher costs to residents and to businesses operating within the cities and counties. There's no question that the cost of illegal dumping and the cost of cleaning up illegal dumping can run in the tens of millions of dollars annually. So let me talk a little bit about urban blight. It has a direct impact on someone's quality of life.
Sure does.
Illegal dumping directly impacts the quality of a neighborhood's life. If there's garbage in the street or mattresses or old appliances, furniture, junk lying around in the street where people live, how can that not impact those living in those impacted neighborhoods? How can it not impact how they feel about not only their own living environment, but how we as a community, and particularly we as government agencies, feel about them? Community members have said, are we being forgotten by the city or by our county? Are we being held in such disregard by others that it's somehow okay to dump garbage in our neighborhoods? These sentiments expressed by community members lead to feelings of hopelessness and despair, and they reinforce feelings that cities and counties do not care about them. They can also reinforce the racial disparities of society. Urban blight, beyond urban blight, and the quality of life issues with illegal dumping, it has an impact on the health of those living in those communities. We also see a direct impact on public safety. Those are conditions and sentiments we have worked through this task force to undo and to dispel. Because we know that illegal dumping often disproportionately harms Brown and Black communities and contributes to decade-long inequities in public health and public safety. But I will say, as aptly stated by Sarah Popescu-Slavikova, who's the co-founder of Green Tumble, she said, and I quote, "Our mental health is affected by the cleanliness of the environment we live in. Places known for illegal dumping are regarded as dirty. People do not feel comfortable or safe around them." And this sentiment is heard over and over again by those living in impacted areas. And I assure you, as I do them, that we hear their voices, we hear their words. Illegal dumping is not the neighborhood's fault, but for many, they are the ones paying the price. And through the collaborative efforts of the task force, we get it. We are bringing resources to impacted neighborhoods and to those living in the neighborhoods. As importantly, we are demonstrating our respect and our care to those impacted by illegal dumping. We are visible and vocal about our efforts to curb and stop illegal dumping. Our successes have increased as community members and those living in impacted neighborhoods and communities join forces with us. They are empowered, and so are we. More and more, we are working with those living in impacted neighborhoods. And one example of that is that my office has installed cameras on private homes to record and catch the wrongdoers, especially the businesses who are doing the illegal dumping. Now, these cameras don't always capture the person dumping if they are doing so at an angle where the camera doesn't capture it. But when they drive away or they drive by, the cameras are capturing them. I'll say also that the Alameda County Sheriff's Department has provided a strong presence in affected communities. They seek and patrol and issue citations to the wrongdoers because, as Supervisor Miley said in the beginning, enforcement is a critical component of stopping illegal dumping. If someone thinks that they can simply dump and get away with it, they will continue to do so. The Sheriff's Department is as strong and has been a critical partner to this task force. Another way we have partnered with the community is through organizing volunteers to clean up the dumped items. Teams spend weekends cleaning up neighborhoods. Not only are we cleaning up the neighborhoods, but it's a very visible and a very real way to put action to our words, to manifest our activism, and to bring our attention to the impacted neighborhoods and areas in our communities. And as a result, more and more individuals in those communities that are impacted are speaking up and joining the fight against illegal dumping. For many, they know that we are fighting together for their right to live in a clean and healthy community. We also know that illegal dumping poses significant public health risks to those living in certain neighborhoods where illegal dumping occurs. Garbage of all sorts either are or eventually will become cesspools of disease. Because you see, when materials such as food garbage, hard surface materials like appliances or mattresses or other materials are disposed of through a refuse center, the materials are treated in a way that airborne disease or toxic waste matter is contained. The ground is treated, the piles are treated, the harm is reduced. But those same materials dumped on the streets or in a field or near water or areas where trees and plants and the like do not have the same treatment. The result can lead to all sorts of health risks and impacts, starting with our pets, dogs and cats, who interact with us all the time, may get ill after eating trash that's left in neighborhoods or in open space. But we realize that one of the biggest risks of illegal dumping poses to human beings is illness. Because sites where trash is just sitting out are breeding grounds for insects like mosquitoes and flies, but also for animals that carry disease like rats and skunks, raccoons and opossums. These insects can carry life-threatening illness and disease to humans. Not so uncommon are dumping old mattresses and other fabric furnitures or appliances, such as refrigerators, washing machines, dryers, or other appliances. These products are being dumped in areas where children play and where people want to congregate. But we know that mattresses and other fabric furniture carry bugs like bed bugs or other diseases that are easily passed from one person to another. Other adverse health risks come into play when dangerous chemicals like automobile fluids, household cleaners, industrial waste, or appliances containing chemicals such as refrigerators and tires are left and are toxic to humans. And we can only hope that no child ever climbs into a discarded appliance like a refrigerator and the door shuts behind them. So in addition to health risks, living in a community that has visible illegal dump sites wears on our mental health and the mental health of those living in those communities. As a society, we now recognize the negative impacts that life circumstances can have on someone's mental state, and how mental health challenges lead to other conditions such as depression, physical manifestations, and other mental health disorders. And it leads to overall hopelessness. My office has studied a lot about hopelessness and the impacts of hopelessness has on the lives of people and what we can do to help people find hope. Hopelessness, depression, malaise, these are all conditions that exist even when people don't recognize them in themselves. And what we have seen and what we know is that as we clean up neighborhoods, as we empower communities to take action against illegal dumping, and they see us care the same as they do about their lives and about their homes, we see people's pride in their community return, people's well-being and mental health improve, even the property values increase. And these are all factors that affect how people feel about where they live. I've talked a little bit about the impacts on those living in certain areas where illegal dumping occurs, but I will say that my office, as Supervisor Miley said, has a very engaged environmental protection division. Deputy District Attorney Elise Sambach is assigned to that division and has also done a great job on the task force, because we see illegal dumping as a major environmental issue. Aside from being an eyesore, illegal dumping wreaks havoc on the environment. As I talked earlier, chemicals from waste and certain appliances can leach into soil and local waterways, causing damage to plants and wildlife and water quality. Garbage tends to be flammable, and that's because various pieces of trash, when mixed together, can release combustible gases. If an illegal dumping site is left unchecked, it increases the odds of a spontaneous fire that can grow and eventually become full-fledged. We investigate possible environmental violations, and when found to be true, we will bring actions against the offenders. And those actions can be criminal, but we also have the ability to bring people into civil court where they can be fined and pay big fines for the damage that they're doing to the environment. Because we fight to ensure that all residents in Alameda County and throughout our state have the right to drink clean water, to breathe clean air, and to live without fear of poisonous contaminants that are harmful to our health, that are found in our water, our air, or products we use. Now, the last point I want to make is an important one that impacts all of us. Did you know that governments spend, like I said, tens of millions of dollars annually removing illegally dumped materials, and private property owners and businesses are the ones who are paying that cost, financial cost? So there are so many aspects, negative aspects to illegal dumping, but there's so much positive action that's being taken under the leadership of Supervisor Miley and the task force and across our state as well. So we're all here to address this issue of illegal dumping. While there may not be one solution to prevent illegal dumping, there are plenty of ways to help combat this issue. Through the Alameda County Illegal Dumping Task Force, we have adopted an effective strategy which will be discussed in a few minutes and in greater detail. And those are the 3 E's: educate, eradicate, enforcement. So in closing, I know those of you here today have thought about this issue, the impacts and the solutions. By being here, you are demonstrating your commitment to stand ready, to tap into our best resources, to identify and articulate the strategies coming out of the collective body of this conference. So I urge you, don't be shy, speak up. Together, we will continue to create successful solutions to stop illegal dumping and to bring healthy living and strong neighborhoods to all. And I thank you for your participation.
Okay, thank you, DA O'Malley. We have about 15 minutes or so before we move into the next segment. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna just kind of chat with you, ask you a few questions to get your responses, because I really think it'd be very illuminating for people to hear from you. So you definitely hit on it. Illegal dumping is a public safety, an environmental health, and a public health issue. And there are costs to us all. And these costs are not just financial costs. The financial costs are exorbitant in and of themselves, but you talked about the cost, the mental health cost, and the cost of hopelessness. Would you want to speak a little bit more about that? Because I know when we first started our illegal dumping efforts more than 3 years ago, and we went into some communities in East Oakland, people had been living with this crap and this despair and this hopelessness for years and years and years. They thought nothing could be done. They were angry, they were upset, and they had, quite frankly, given up. They weren't walking in their communities. Their quality of life had diminished. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. The whole issue of hopelessness is a new emerging science. It's not new to us. I mean, we've seen people who have no hope, who don't see their life different. But there's actually a science of hope now. And I'm proud to say that people from the Alameda County Family Justice Center, clients and children who have witnessed violence, have been involved in violence, and came to us with no hope of their life ever being different, participated in the research. So there is a science of hope, and we know how to measure hope now. And Supervisor, when you talk about going into the communities 3+ years ago, and finding just a malaise or just feeling like nothing will ever be different, and nobody cares about us, we're sort of isolated in this area. That's the definition of hopeless. And hopelessness can cause physical manifestations also, just like depression does and other issues. So as the task force, and I use this specifically as an example, as the task force formed, as people saw us coming into communities, as more and more people joined us, and that was the start of hope rising. That was the start of people feeling like we're not the forgotten ones. That and a lot of what we do through the task force is not just clean up their streets and plant trees and other beautification, but what we're also doing is showing them that we care about them, that we are with them, and that we want their lives to be as well as we want for ourselves and our families. And so that transition from hopeless to hope, from hopeless to hope, is quite noticeable and quite measurable. And I can see it, you can see it when we're out on the street. More community members are joining in, there's more attention on this issue, there's more enforcement on this issue, and all of that just adds to someone's feeling like they matter in this world. They matter to this community. Their health and safety and quality of life matters to all of us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And would you say that illegal dumping, because I know Ken Houston from the Beautification Council, he has described illegal dumping as a crime against the community. Would you share in that sentiment?
I do. I think that when individuals or businesses think it's okay to go dump their garbage in a particular neighborhood, or dump their mattresses. I mean, this, as I said, many of these items are incredibly dangerous to the people that are affected by that when they're out on the street. But it's a statement that's being made, and through the task force, that statement has been transitioned into a statement of support and love and care and respect and dignity. But before that, the crime against it is that, who cares about this neighborhood? Nobody's going to do anything. They don't care about their neighborhood. I don't care about the neighborhood. The city doesn't, the county doesn't. And I'm not just talking about Alameda County. This is a national problem. And but this county, and for sure under your leadership, has transformed that to stop to saying out loud that you cannot commit this crime, this assault on the people that are impacted by the actions of those that are dumping their garbage or dumping their materials. I agree with what Ken says, and I share in his energy around transforming that whole condition.
Mm-hmm. And what role do you think cameras could play in helping us to address or get a better handle on this problem of illegal dumping?
Well, cameras are great because, one, they tell us who's doing the dumping. And they may not identify an individual by their site, but if it's a truck, if it's a business, because, we know that a good portion of illegal dumping is done by commercial organizations. And, they've got logos on their trucks. They've got, we can get license plates if it's captured on a camera. But cameras are also a great deterrent, because someone's not going to go and commit a crime if they know there's a camera that is potentially filming them do the crime. And so I think cameras are a great deterrent, but they also help us identify the people who are doing the illegal dumping. And Supervisor, one of the important things that we're doing with those that get caught and cited and cited for their illegal dumping is that we're sitting down with them and we're building that, we're talking about the impact of their actions, the human impact, the health impact, the environmental impact, and trying to educate and sensitize them so that they don't just pay a fine and continue doing it. They then have a better appreciation of what their action is doing, the assault that they're committing on the community and on our environment that affects all of us.
And I know we'll get more into cameras on Friday through the enforcement. So Nancy, how long have you been the district attorney here in Alameda County?
I've been doing this for 11 years now.
And you've been in the DA's office for how many years?
36.
36. It's been a career. All right. And one person raised a question of how does your office go about the enforcement efforts? How many staff do you have focused on this or working on this? How do you try to deal with this so that there's resources associated with addressing this problem?
That's a great question. So we have Elise Sandback, as I've said, is leading this effort for the office. We have investigators who are all sworn peace officers. We call them inspectors who are assigned to the work. But importantly, Elise organizes volunteers to go out and help with the beautification and help with the picking up the garbage and help being out in the community. So there's an army of staff from my office who are out in the communities and the neighborhoods on the weekends doing the work. The resources, one of the areas that we focus on, as I talked about, is that in the civil arena, when we identify a large dumping agency, like somebody like a business that's not taking their stuff to the refuse sites, but rather just going into neighborhoods and dumping it, that we can sue them civilly. And that those result in civil judgments. And when we get civil judgments, we're able to reinvest that money. It's held in trust, and we can reinvest that money in ways that allow us to increase the efforts, increase the community efforts, increase the law enforcement efforts, and any other way that works towards beautifying and keeping our communities healthy and our environment healthy also.
Now we know illegal dumping knows no boundaries, and that's one reason why this is something that needs to be addressed statewide, because Alameda County, Contra Costa County, Santa Clara, San Jose, LA, we could all do things, but our efforts would just basically be isolated to our jurisdiction. But in order, and somebody who illegally dumps, they'll just go into another jurisdiction and dump their trash and debris. And so this area, I've seen how through Cal Recycle and other efforts, how this has impacted rural communities and suburban communities as well. So there's a question here about abandoned vehicles. They're kind of just out of control and proliferating, and junk piles, we find them in rural communities as well. So is there anything that your office can provide in terms of some ideas or advice on how that might be abated?
Well, I think that first of all, there are places where cars that are no longer functioning or vehicles no longer functioning can go. So if it's a vehicle that can't pass the smog, for instance, it will be bought back by the state of California. You just have to take it to the place. It has to be drivable to get into the gate of the facility where they will pay you for turning in these old vehicles that are a problem. But for the ones that are just left behind, you know, there should be a hotline that can be called, and I think there are hotlines, or like the sheriff's department, if it's an unincorporated part of any county, the sheriff's department has jurisdiction, and those cars can be removed. It's important to remove them because we don't often think about it, but cars actually, when the dashboard is split open, there are chemicals that are inside the stuff that's inside the dashboard and the seat cushions and the steering wheel that can be very toxic. And that fluff, while it can't be breathed in, if someone touches the fluff that has that toxicity in it, that can cause that's a carcinogenic. So we just settled a case with Schnitzer Steel, who crushes the cars. And over the last several years, I have to say that they've built containers so that when they crush the cars and all that toxic material that's inside our cars breaks loose, it's contained. So it's not going out into the environment. And so I think from what we've learned through what happens environmentally when cars are left abandoned and then they split apart or seats break and this fluff starts moving around, and that can be very, very dangerous. And so I think that, you know, one solution could be setting up that hotline number to say, okay, if someone sees an abandoned car, call this number. And I'll say even that we may be able to use some of those trust funds to set that up, knowing what we know now about the dangers of abandoned cars.
Okay, another couple of quick questions, then we'll move on. So there's a question here from the work that your office has been involved in around illegal dumping. Have you been able to ascertain any information about why people are illegally dumping, or any data that where the illegal dumping, let's say, items are coming from?
Well, sometimes we know where it's coming from because it has envelopes with people's addresses on it. And so we go through, we put our hazmat suits on and go through the garbage to see if we can identify where it came from. What we have learned is that for some people, you know, they don't want to pay to go down to the you know, the place where you would legally dump your garbage or your materials. It's driving down to the transfer station down in San Leandro or in other parts around the county is more than they want to do. What we have seen is some businesses that have been paid to take garbage away or take materials away, and they drive to an open field, no one's looking, and they just dump it there. So they're now making money off of not only hauling it away, but not having to pay the fee at the transfer station to dispose of it legally. And so we're focusing on and we've seen more of the business, I'll say business trash collector types that are hauling their garbage away, that are illegally dumping. But we also see people that drive down the street and say, and this goes to the issue about blight. Someone drives down the street and sees garbage along the street. Well, what the heck? Why should I'll just dump my garbage. And, you know, we see that garbage then pile up until somebody comes and rescues that area from the dumping. So we keep track. You know, the challenging one is that for some of the materials like mattresses, they have to be hauled. I mean, there's no way to take a bag of garbage and a mattress and throw it out of your car window. So there's more effort that's put into illegally dumping mattresses, which is one of the really common materials that are dumped, both in our county and across the nation. They're discovering. And
the thing is very interesting because, you know, I'm a strong believer in the broken window theory. So if a community looks like crap, then it's a breeding ground for any more stuff that brings down the quality of life, produces more hopelessness, and is a breeding ground for other type of criminal activity and behavior. So I think illegal dumping is a precursor to that. The other thing is, you mentioned that the efforts around illegal dumping, because I think my last question would be, do you think enforcement is a key ingredient in trying to help us to deal with this problem of illegal dumping? Because, and I say that only because, and maybe I'm talking to the choir here, mattresses, for example, can be recycled. People can be educated to understand that illegal dumping affects the environment, affects public health. But despite all that, and I like to use the analogy, if we didn't have law enforcement out helping us and ensuring us to drive within the speeding limit and obey the traffic laws, we'd have chaos on the roadways. In some cases, we do anyway. So what role does enforcement play in this whole effort of trying to deal with illegal dumping?
Well, for one thing, and you said this in your opening remarks, that if there isn't enforcement, then people have no consequence, and there's no consequence for doing it, they'll continue doing it. And so there has to be a stop. And as I point out that, enforcement doesn't mean go to jail. I mean, it could, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to stop illegal dumping. And if we don't use our enforcement powers, and again, by enforcement, it is sitting down, doing almost like a restorative justice to talk to people about the impact they're having. But I think, Supervisor, another point that often gets overlooked is that people that live in the community are entitled to the same services if they live in parts of our city versus another part of our city, or part of the county versus another part. They're entitled to know that the enforcement, the healthy protection that is given by law enforcement around their safety and their health, they're entitled to the same service as everybody else is. And I think that for many people, before the task force really was put together and we gave so much attention to this, I know in talking to people from the community, they felt like they didn't have that service that they were entitled to. They felt like other parts of community were getting a lot of good service, but they weren't getting any. And I think that it's a really strong statement to our entire community, our entire county, that everybody deserves to live in a healthy, clean, safe environment.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you ended with that, because there's been a lot of emphasis these days on equity. That seems to be the popular word these days, equity. And I think you hit on it really hard. All communities are deserving of the same level of quality of life and aesthetics, and to live and to be assured that there's appropriate equity for their communities, and it's just not disproportionate to one area or another, regardless of whether it's the inner city, whether it's a rural community, suburban community. Everybody deserves the same level of quality. So I just want to thank you for talking with all of us this morning, sharing your insight. I know there were a number of questions that came up, and I tried to present a number of those questions to you based on some of the attendees, what they gave me. So thank you so very much. And what I'd like to do real quickly before I pass it on to Aaron is I just want to remind people, in terms of the housekeeping, how to ask questions. Use the QA feature at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you miss the presentation, the conference is being recorded, so all registered attendees can receive the recording. And then if you have questions, comments, or concerns, email aaron.armstrong@acgov.org for questions, concerns, and comments. So once again, thank you, DA O'Malley. And what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Aaron Armstrong from my office, who's going to speak about the 3 E's: eradication, education, and enforcement. Aaron has worked for me for a number of years as a graduate from Mills College as her master's, and is doing an excellent job. And Aaron's wife is expecting pretty soon, so she's going to be a mother. So Aaron, floor is yours.
Thanks, Supervisor, and go Cyclones. And DA O'Malley, thank you very much for that keynote. There are a couple of questions in the Q&A feature that I left for you. So if you have a moment to stick around and provide an answer to some of those questions, I'm sure our guests today would greatly appreciate it. So as I mentioned, my name is Erin Armstrong, and I'm the special assistant to Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley. And for the last 2 years, I have helped to spearhead his efforts on illegal dumping, including the Alameda County illegal dumping pilot. That's the slide. Thank you. Now, for this pilot, we use a strategy called the 3 E's, which is education, eradication, and enforcement. And you'll hear a lot about these different pillars of this strategy as we move throughout the conference. Now, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the idea of a keystone. A keystone is what holds a bridge together that's made out of stone. As you can see from the diagram here that's on screen, there are 2 supports that come up on each side, and in the middle is a keystone. Now, with a bridge built like this, it will be very stable. But if you remove any of these elements, if you remove that keystone, if you remove one of the sides or the other side, that bridge is going to collapse and you won't have an effective strategy. And so the 3 E's are that effective strategy. And each of these elements is just as important. And when they all come together, that's when it's effective. But without one or without 2, you really start to get into a problem. So what are the 3 E's? Well, the first E is education. And with education, you really want to focus on some of those upstream solutions that are going to prevent illegal dumping from happening in the future. These are things like working with children to make sure that they understand the importance of making sure that their waste gets into the waste stream properly. It also extends to some reactive education. If you notice, for example, that a multifamily unit is consistently dumping piles of garbage outside because their waste bins are not large enough, then you can educate that building owner on how to right size their waste bins so that they're no longer overflowing. This is all about upstream work to prevent illegal dumping from happening in the future, to create an easier time for us as we move forward. Now, eradication. This is really your boots on the ground. Eradication is so important because, as the supervisor pointed out with the broken windows theory, if you turn onto a street and you're an illegal dumper and there's already illegal dumping everywhere, you're not going to have a problem dumping on that street. If you're a neighborhood member and you're walking down the sidewalk and you see a pile of illegal dumping, say you have a candy wrapper or something in your hand, you're not going to think twice about throwing that candy wrapper on top of that pile of illegal dumping. What's one more candy wrapper compared to this big pile? So illegal dumping and blight attracts more illegal dumping and blight. And that's why eradication, especially quick and timely eradication, is so important. Because when you turn onto a clean street, if you're a legal dumper, for example, and that street looks clean, it's tree lined, it's well lit, you're going to think twice. But if you turn onto that street and it's already trashed, that's a signal to go ahead and dump. So eradication is so important. And then that brings us to our final E, which is enforcement. Now, you'll hear a lot about enforcement throughout the conference, but especially from our eradication partners who feel that without enforcement, they're struggling. Enforcement is really the way that we hold dumpers accountable for their actions. There needs to be the feeling that there are consequences for inflicting the crime of illegal dumping on this community. And we're not talking about throwing somebody in jail and throwing away the key, especially if it's just a little bag of garbage or something like that. But what we do want to do is we want to catch them, let them know what's going on and what they did was wrong. And we want them to go and clean up their garbage and maybe even put on a vest and come out and join us on a couple Saturdays with some community service, cleaning up garbage in the neighborhood. It's all about that enforcement, because if you know that you might get caught, if you've dumped, been caught, and then had to go out and clean, you can guarantee your chances of dumping illegally are going down every single time. And so it's really about your downstream solutions. So you can imagine these three E's come together and create an effective strategy. But what happens if you don't have one of the E's? For example, let's say we don't have education. We're only working on eradication and enforcement. We're picking up the garbage and we're enforcing the law. Well, we're not doing anything on the upstream to try and prevent illegal dumping from happening in the future. In this situation, there's no long-term fix to the problem. We're simply treading our wheels. What happens if we remove eradication and just focus on education and enforcement? Well, in that case, the garbage is allowed to accumulate over and over, and before you know it, it's out of control. And we haven't done anything to actually prevent those visual cues of deterioration. That's why eradication, quick and timely eradication, is so important. Now, what if we're just doing education, eradication, but we're not doing any enforcement at all? Well, in that case, all we're doing is providing a free garbage service to illegal dumpers. It's effectively an incentive for people who want to skirt the law. If you're an unscrupulous hauler, unlicensed, and you take somebody's junk from their house, maybe charge them $150, but it costs $100 to go and take it to the dump. But for free and without consequences, you can go dump it on the street and there's no enforcement. So you don't have to worry about getting caught. What are you going to do? And we see this time and time again. And that's why we need all three pillars to come together and make sure that that you're using the three E's of education, eradication, enforcement, because together they are much stronger. And without one, that bridge falls apart. The other piece that we feel is so important about these strategies is it not only addresses illegal dumping when it happens, it addresses it upstream as well as a preventative tool with education, and it addresses it downstream as well with the actual consequences that are related to enforcement. So we believe this is a comprehensive strategy. We've used this strategy for the last 2.5 years. Sorry, please mute yourself.
I'm going to do a quick walkthrough. I wanted to share that it is.
Thank you. So we've used this strategy for the last 3 years in our illegal dumping pilot, and we have transformed multiple neighborhoods in East Oakland from a state of being dumped on every day to now beautiful, clean streets that people are walking their dogs and kids down. And we've done it through the three E's. Now, the conference is going to go very in-depth to the three E's. As you'll notice when the supervisor went through the entire conference schedule, we have each day dedicated to one of these three E's. Today is Education Day, and we're very excited to go deep into what it means to do that education work, focusing on the upstream solutions to illegal dumping. Tomorrow, we'll dig deeper into eradication and really get into what it means to be boots on the ground, cleaning the streets. And then on Friday, the final day of the conference, we'll go with our enforcement day, and we'll learn all about the different aspects of enforcement, whether that's code enforcement, law enforcement, the district attorney, or even community-based enforcement by just holding your neighbors accountable. So it's a very deep topic, and we're looking forward to getting into each of these strategic areas as we move forward. So once again, I just want to remind everybody that if you have questions, you can use the Q&A feature down below. Let's go to the next slide, Maylene. And right now, what we're going to do is just take a brief 5-minute break. We know that these are long days. You're here for 3 hours a day for 3 days in a row, and we really appreciate you being here. But why don't you take the next couple of moments to grab a drink, grab a snack, make sure that you're comfortable, use the restroom if you have to, because this break is brought to you by Waste Management. After this break, and again, this is only 5 minutes starting now, so be ready to come back. We will jump right in to our illegal dumping education block. From there, we're going to hear from speakers regarding an introduction to the concept of education. What does education mean? Why is it so important? We'll then learn about best practices for online disposal tools from our partners at Stop Waste, who've developed an online disposal tool to help you understand where to properly dispose of those hard to dispose of items. Things like batteries, couches, paint, oil, all of those difficult items that you can't just throw out with your weekly garbage, and which we see end up on the street as a result. We'll also hear about working with students on that upstream work and really dig into what it means to do that work with youth and how that's going to impact us as we move forward into the future. Following our partners at Stop Waste, we're very excited to welcome Amory Brandt to present on her master's thesis, which focuses on illegal dumping as an indicator of social disorder. Now, if you're a member of the Illegal Dumping Task Force, you may be familiar with some of Amory's work. And for anyone who's not a member of the task force, you can feel free to email me to join the task force. My email is Erin, that's ERIN, .Armstrong, ARMSTRONG, @acgov.org. And we'd be happy to add you into that task force. We meet every third Thursday from 9 a.m. to noon, and we discuss important topics around illegal dumping. After Amory's presentation, we're very excited to host a panel with some of our experts on education focused on upstream solutions to illegal dumping. And following that, we will have a wrap up of the day by Supervisor Dave Miley. So I'm just going to remind everybody, we're on break right now for the next 2.5 minutes. Time is winding down. Please make sure you're grabbing that drink, grabbing that snack, finishing up everything you need to do. Get comfortable, because after this, we're really going to sit in for the next 2 hours and dig deep into what it means to be education when it comes to those 3 E's. So I'm going to stop talking now, and in about 2 minutes, we'll come back with an exciting video and jump right into it. The break will be ending in 1 minute. The break will be ending in 1 minute. Please finish grabbing your snack, your drink, and make yourself comfortable as we get into our education block.
If nothing else, we have a moral responsibility to take care of our children.
Our children have many, many obstacles.
They have social media. They have we have a moral responsibility to take care of our children. Our children have many, many obstacles. They have social media, they have drugs, they have guns and weapons that's in school. They have these things to think about. They shouldn't have to worry about their path of travel to school. Our children should be growing mentally, physically, and enjoying life. We live here, they live here. It's shameful they have to live through this.
Imagine you walking with your little brother or siblings like that, and you have to walk through this, and like you can literally get hit by a car because these roads are like really dangerous, and they be passing really fast through here, and they act like kids don't pass through here.
Our children and our community deserve better than this.
That you should help your community even if it's not for money.
Keep our community clean. Let me see. Keep our community clean. Thank you, God. Let's go. Be careful with the traffic. Be careful with the traffic.
Thank you for our partners at the Beautification Council for putting that excellent video together to really frame why addressing illegal dumping is so important. It's now my great pleasure to welcome the team from Stop Waste to the inaugural statewide conference on illegal dumping. I'd like to welcome Jeff Becerra. Jeff Becerra joined Stop Waste in 2010 and is responsible for overseeing the agency's media and communication efforts. He has more than 25 years of experience producing environmentally beneficial public outreach programs for businesses, residents, and schools. Before coming to Stop Waste, Jeff was a senior public information representative at the East Bay Municipality Utility District, or EBMUD, and director of marketing at Rides for East Bay commuters. Joining Jeff is Robin Platchak, who is a program manager at Stop Waste, where she manages the online search tool Resource, as well as advertising and social media for their food waste and used oil recycling campaigns. She helps cities roll out curbside food scrap recycling programs, promoting multifamily recycling and managing the backyard composite bin sales. Before Stop Waste, she worked in public information and as a staff scientist for the environmental consulting firm focused on water research, and served in the U.S. Peace Corps as an environmental educator in Paraguay. She's a graduate of Amherst College. And lastly, we'd like to welcome Angelina Vergara, who has been teaching environmental education as a classroom teacher and an environmental educator as a school administrator, and in her current role at Stop Waste, where she's the school and program manager for over 25 years. Stop Waste programs serve and partner with Alameda County school champions. They co-create action plans for caring individuals and for school communities by fostering students who take action as global citizens. Welcome, Stop Waste.
Thank you so much, Aaron. And also thank you and Supervisor Miley for putting on this much needed event. We're happy to be here representing some of the things that are happening within Alameda County. So yeah, I'm Jeff Becerra with Stop Waste, here with my colleagues Robin and Angelina. Stop Waste is a joint powers agency. We work in Alameda County with residents, businesses, and schools on sustainable resource use of materials and energy. Our joint powers agency is made up of all the cities in Alameda County, the county itself, and the Orloma and Castro Valley sanitary districts. So the concept of education is very important. It has many forms, and it's a big part of what we do. And as Aaron mentioned, education really is a way for us to focus on waste prevention. So I think most people who are attending today have heard about the waste reduction hierarchy. There are different forms, but the classic one of reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot for compost has at the top reduce, and it's there for a reason. So it's, in a way, it helps prevent bad decisions needing to be made, what to do for something that you no longer need. And so in the case of legal dumping, the more that we can prevent it from happening, the less we need to manage the problem through eradication and enforcement. So we're going to be featuring two types of education today from Stop Waste. First is making it easier to learn about proper disposal. And for us, disposal is a term that also includes reuse, recycling, and repair. Highest and best use is what we're looking for. The other type of education is how we work with students to help them become long-term stewards of our communities with a focus that does include litter prevention and illegal dumping. So with that, first, I'll turn it over to Robin, who's going to provide us an overview of our resource tool. And then after that, we'll hear from Angelina about our efforts in schools. And so with that, Robin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us here today. As mentioned, my name is Robin Platchak, and I'm the manager of the resource tool. And I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the tool. And I am going to share my screen. So I'm going to try that now. And please give me a thumbs up that you can see it. So does everybody see my screen? Are we there yet?
Looks good, Robin.
All right, thank you. So as I mentioned, my name is Robin Platchak, and I'm sharing the tool resource. And this has been developed in-house by our team at Stop Waste. It is a way to share information to our residents, businesses, and schools about how to repair, reuse, recycle, compost, and/or properly dispose of items. It has been developed in-house. I want to give major kudos to my colleagues, Chris Ross and Janine Sidran, for their innovation, industry knowledge, and hard work and dedication in helping to develop this tool. We launched it last year on Earth Day, a soft launch with our board. So it is 1 year old this week. So it is apropos that we're sharing it with you to the larger community. It shares all sorts of information, like how to dispose of things curbside. But today I'm going to focus on some of the items that are commonly that are difficult to dispose of, that may have a fee involved, that may be bulky, that are small construction projects that are frequently found dumped. So I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough. The easiest way to find the tool is to go to our website, stopwaste.org, where it is prominently featured in a couple of different places all throughout. But on the front page, you can see it, and you can start your search right here, or you can click on the logo, and that will take you to the search tool itself. As I mentioned, we launched this last year during the height of lockdown, and so we do ask people to always, we have a notification up here that we have over 1,000 different items in here. We're always updating it, but it has been very much shifting sands over the past year. So we always ask people to call first, especially if you're going to borrow a truck and load a couch to bring it somewhere. It's always better to make sure that the place you're taking it has those resources, is still accepting those materials. So there's several ways to access the tool. You can just start by doing a search, for example, couch. We'll show you furniture non-working if you wish to repair it or dispose of it, or furniture working if you wish to have donations. The thing I would also like to share is we have been working with the public in Alameda County for over 20 years, managing a phone line, taking requests and questions from the public via phone, email, and also managing various search tools. This tool replaces a tool that we co-developed with other local Bay Area agencies called Recycleware. So we have a good sense of the types of items people are trying to get rid of that have frequently, and we have created some quick searches here, and I'll focus on some of these, such as bulky, which includes large broken appliances, mattresses, old furniture, automotive, which includes some toxins and tires. Also, we have construction, which are all, these items are all, we have quick searches for things that people are frequently trying to get rid of. All items are listed here down below. As you can see, it is a pretty exhaustive list. We also have synonyms for those items. As you can see, when I searched for couch, it took me to furniture. So we've really worked on trying to make a tool that is very easy for the public to use, that provides quick and accurate answers. I'm going to search using these buttons here, bulky, and show you an example of mattresses. So as you can see, actually, I'm going to change the zip code. It switched on me. I'm going to enter the zip code for downtown Oakland, 94612, mattresses and box springs. And the first thing that comes up is that this item is accepted in a bulky pickup. So if I'm a resident of Oakland in a single family home, that bulky pickup service is available to me, and I can click here and get more information. I will share that with you in a moment. I also can find out that a third-party vendor, Bye Bye Mattresses information is available. So we do try to feature if there is a third-party vendor like Bye Bye Mattress or Paint Care or one of the larger organizations, or the Cal Recycle used oil recycling. We do try to feature a larger database. It is often redundant and listed here in our services as well, but we do want to make sure that those services are really highlighted and brought forward in the search results. I'm going to scroll down and show you what those search results look like. If I am searching for how to dispose of a mattress here in Oakland, it lists different vendors, and they're listed by distance, because we know convenience and cost are major, are really priorities for people trying to get rid of things. And so you can scroll by distance to see where they're located. You can also, if I was searching for a free pickup, I could filter that information. And I'll scroll back down so you can see the results. Again, we always ask people to call first to make sure that those services are still being offered. We also share if that information, if that mattress might be reused or repaired as part of that search. Scrolling back up to this curbside and bulky pickup item, I'm going to click here to share that this item is available for bulky pickup. We have a listing for all cities within Alameda County, all of the jurisdictions that we serve, in which we list all of the items that are available for weekly curbside. There's a highlighted items at the top. You can see the full listing for recycling, organics, garbage. And then we also have special items. Those are the curbside, the used oil recycling, batteries, things like that that might be collected curbside, and a special category for bulky pickup. Again, this lists all of the items. All Oakland residents are eligible to receive bulky pickup item services, how to contact for multifamily, the contact for waste management, and the items that are typically collected for bulky pickup, as well as information, further information about them if merited. We also offer information about debris box and construction and demolition services. Those are often typically small projects are often dumped as well. Information about the City of Oakland services, information for businesses, as well as how to report illegal dumping. So on every single city's page within Alameda County, we do have information about how to report illegal dumping. All right. I'm going to go back up to the top, and I forgot that I'm going to, so again, when I showed the mattresses, you could click on the link and go directly to the Buy By Mattress page. I shared the curbside information is available. And again, you can get to that very easily with this large button at the bottom that says curbside information, and that will take you directly to if you wanted to look for your jurisdiction's information. We also have created these materials fact sheets. Again, this is at the bottom. These are our hot links for things that are really important, like household hazardous waste. We list all the 4 locations that offer free services for Alameda County residents to bring their hazardous waste for free disposal. And then the curbside information and the materials fact sheets. This is a place where we can just have focus areas and provide a little bit more story about how to properly dispose of items, what happens to them, and a little bit more in-depth information. And we recently created this bulky items area that gives a little bit of history about, how come they're, about what can be done with them. That's these items are available for curbside bulky pickup programs. That multifamily in many cities does provide bulky services for that has to go through the landlord or the property manager. Information for businesses. And then we also have some quick links for some of those items I mentioned: mattresses, furniture, large household appliances, electronics, tires, paint, information about reuse, construction, demolition, and again about illegal dumping. We created this curbside detail report. Initially, we created it for our own use in-house, and it lists information for each jurisdiction within Alameda County, who are the service providers, pick up information about bulky and C&D and illegal dumping. We were finding that we needed to provide this information to the public, and so we aggregated it, and we have this sheet that's available. We'll be finessing it over time to make it more friendly for the public, but we thought it was a very useful tool, especially for this audience here today. So we did want to share that for every city, I don't want to make you too dizzy here, but for every city in Alameda County, we have that information about about those services. And lastly, I just wanted to share about a little bit more about construction and demolition services. This is a search I already did for carpet within the city of Alameda, and it shows that this is accepted for construction and demolition debris pickup. We have information about the Carpet American Recovery Act, CARE, which is featured on Cal Recycle, and this is available for pickup for Alameda County bulky waste. So again, this tool is available for Alameda County residents on stopwaste.org's website. We also have created a mobile app, so you can get it from your store by looking for the resource tool or click on either of these links from your phone. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Angelina.
And while Angelina's getting ready, I'll just say that I'm gonna I'll do my best to answer the questions that are popping up in the Q&A.
Oh, I am also available to answer. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Angelina Vergara, and I am the Stop Waste Schools Program Manager, which serves 18 school districts in Alameda County. And I've been an environmental educator for over 25 years. And I'm happy to share today our lessons learned with working with schools, student communities, and our lessons learned about educating others about illegal dumping. You know, although we have shifted our work during COVID-19 with distance learning, from developing in-person tours with our partners at Fremont BLT Transfer Station and Waste Management's Davis Street Transfer Station in San Leandro, we have continued supporting students to take action at home and supporting students and schools in the rejoining for in-person instruction. Our intention is to foster a regenerative mindset where environmental and social issues like illegal dumping are not the norm. To do that, we continue to co-create resources for students from kindergarten to 12th grade to take action. So what is a regenerative mindset? For students, it's fostering our students to build environmental awareness and meaningful connections on their relationship to nature, and apply knowledge and skills to educate others on environmental issues to take action. What are we going for? So have you ever freaked out when your family member didn't take the plastic sticker off their fruit before putting it into the compost bin? Because you understand that's contamination. And then you explain the entire BPI certified compost system. Well, congratulations, you have a regenerative mindset. Or have you scolded your family member who forgot to use their reusable bag, and you go on to explain the millions of dollars municipalities pay for litter, not to mention the thousands of sea turtles that die annually? Congratulations, you have the regenerative mindset. So to get to that regenerative mindset, you start with educating for awareness. The younger, the better. To do this, we co-created a regional model for action-based learning. This model has proven to be successful in engaging students to take action over time. It allows us to be nimble. We can take any deliverable our agency is addressing and use this model, which allows us to take on complex social environmental issues and have students help solve complex questions like, what can we do to prevent food waste and address our county's hunger issue? And relevant today, the question of why do people illegally dump in our communities and not others? And what can we do to systematically change it? The strategy we are currently trying on is stepping back from the problem first framing of environmental issues. Instead, we're using a vision first approach. In the case of addressing illegal dumping being a problem first, we first focus on our common vision of having beautiful, sustainable, and thriving communities. This intention allows students to have a more positive outlook and in turn, the regenerative mindset we're going for. When we start there, it allows us to hold the depressing effects of environmental issues with them as they hold also a positive outlook. We don't shy away from depressing issues. The youth get it. They understand that people are dumping because of gentrification, because they may be experiencing gentrification. They understand mental illness, homelessness, unemployment, and climate change, because they are personally or have family and friends who are experiencing those same mental health issues, homelessness, and unemployment, and they get climate change. Unfortunately, staying at home, not because you're sick or because you're in a pandemic, but it's becoming a predicted pattern now where, unlike us adults who were growing up, our children have a new lexicon of smoke days that they stay home for because there's wildfires that's a result of climate change. Truly, as educators, we don't even bring these issues up. Just ask students, why do you think illegal dumping is happening? They connect the dots. The strategy we are currently, The more they construct meaning collectively around issues, the more they become ambassadors of making change in their communities. For all our students, stories of animals being harmed or habitats lost, waste, and single-use ocean plastic pollution are common entry points to discussing illegal dumping in their communities. It's relevant. It's what they care about. These are screenshots from this week where our Stop Waste ambassadors have been hosting regenerative Earth Talks. They're sharing stories of taking action during the pandemic, which includes illegal dumping. This week, they are sharing how students are taking action with our partnership with Literati, a digital platform that takes the ubiquitous student cell phone and transforms it as a tool to capture and track litter by geotagging pictures on their phone app. It compiles a virtual landfill, categorizing them, what the item is, where and when the litter was picked up, and provides a report card of the litter profile. We are currently having dialogues with literati staff on how the app could be applied to address illegal dumping sites. For our education field trips, we have integrated in our tour the story of the albatross and how Oakland students from Lighthouse Community Charter School transformed litter and illegal dumping items into a story of reuse and innovation and community beautification. The Lighthouse students participated in our Litter-Free Action Project as part of our 4R Student Action Project program. They performed a litter audit, not with the literati app, but manually, and categorized litter and illegal dumping items on their school block in East Oakland. Learning about watersheds and how water moves plastic into our storm drains, into the bay, and into the ocean. They also observed real boluses of albatross, a bird in the Pacific Ocean Midway Atoll. And like an owl, they eat food and their waste collects in clumps in their digestive systems, which they regurgitate to dispose. They learned that the boluses are full of plastic waste mistaken as food. Activated, the students decided to create an albatross made of plastic litter and illegal dumping debris to share the albatross story, and created a sculpture called Albatross or Albatrash, your choice. The students' artwork continues to educate the community at our Stop Waste Art Gallery, headquartered in downtown Oakland. In addition, students presented to every class at their school their findings, created letters to the fast food restaurants that they sourced as the litter generators, and wrote for their school's parent bulletin to educate their community about how to keep their community beautiful through upstream waste prevention solutions. When students are included in solutions to illegal dumping, there is a win-win-win-win. You're fostering ownership for students to continue caring for their communities. You're fostering attitudes that are intrinsic for lifetime stewards. You're recruiting stewards who are educating the community for you, and you're empowering them from helplessness to hopefulness. The mindset of I can't, but we can. Which brings me to a couple of youth-involved projects. Jill Buck, who is one of our Stop Waste Schools partners in Pleasanton, and also director of Go Green Initiative, hosted this week a discussion on her Green Radio blog. She interviewed the city of Camden, New Jersey, who partnered with artists from an artists collective called Terraform. This week, with high schoolers being part of the design process, they are creating 6 monumental sculptures integrating illegal dumped items on sites at the 6 illegal dumping sites that they identified, transforming their communities from spaces of peril to spaces of hope. Also, I am proud to share, happening now is our Stop Waste school partner, David Brower-Dellum Sustainable Policy Institute, has been working with our SWAP youth leaders to redesign schools to beautify creekside school sites in Oakland and San Leandro, which is also part of the Oro Loma Sanitary District. And as you know, creeks are illegal dumping sites. And like Camden, New Jersey, they are having the youth design benches along the creek made of found illegal dumping materials that celebrate the rich indigenous story of the creek, of the Ohlone, and the rich cultures of the community. We may start with the students taking action at school, but what we know is that students are excellent storytellers and effective messengers whose impact ripples out from the classrooms to their peer classes, to their PTAs and PTOs, schools events, their local businesses, nonprofits, faith-based, and community organizations in the local community. And this is a transformation that we hope to lift and continue to support in our communities, where we cultivate and foster regenerative mindsets for a thriving future for all, where our children are not reacting to issues like illegal dumping, but are part of a critical, collaborative, and creative thinking process to take action locally to solve through upstream solutions. And as a program, we continue to co-create resources with our partners. We are currently developing a litter-free world edition from our Amazing Garbologist curriculum series, and we will be integrating messaging on how to take action upstream for illegal dumping. And we continue to explore where are those missed opportunities to engage change makers. We developed a parent chaperone program to specifically engage parents to take action rather than passive observers in our tours. And we also continue to engage and work with our teacher and school champions, school district curriculum instructors by hosting 4 Hours Fridays to build a network to share stories of taking action and to remember that we're not alone. And at the heart of our work, we invest in our youth as true agents of change, whether it be transforming illegally dumped tires into thriving school and community gardens, or presenting upstream solutions where students work with school boards and city councils to pass environmental and climate literacy school board resolutions that are aligned with their city's climate action plans. Lastly, please note, and I may be biased, but working with students who are the future and fostering a regenerative mindset is the #1 upstream solution to illegal dumping you can do. And that everything that I shared today about engaging students applies 100% to adults who are also, of course, agents of change. Si se puede, and thank you. And Erin.
Thank you so much to our Stop Waste partners for that excellent presentation and for really showing the breadth of what education can do and why it's so important. I also want to thank you all for taking the time to answer the questions that we received in our Q&A feature, and want to remind all of the participants who are here today, if you have questions, all you need to do is go down at the bottom of your screen, open up that Q&A feature, and type them right in there. Now we'll ask our Stop Waste panelists here to stick around for a few minutes and answer any remaining questions that people might have. So if you've been holding on to a question, or you're not you haven't been quite sure, now's your time. So please drop those questions in the Q&A feature and get an answer directly from the experts here on education. So thank you so much, Jeff, Robin, and Angelina, for all of your help and all of your support with the inaugural statewide conference, and for all of the efforts that you do in education around illegal dumping. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for having us. Appreciate it.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
It's now my great pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Amory Brandt. Amory Brandt will be speaking us today on her master's thesis around illegal dumping as an indicator of social disorder. And I'm just going to ask everyone who's not Amory or me, there we go, very nice, to step off. So Amory is a senior executive analyst with the city manager's office in the city of San Jose, where she manages data and GIS mapping for the beautification programs. So she's really in it and has all of that knowledge and data. Prior to joining the city of San Jose, she worked as a science teacher at a low-income middle school in East San Jose through Teach for America. Amory became passionate about equality and environmental justice during her time as an educator, which prompted her to attend San Jose State University for a master's in science in environmental studies. Amory today will be presenting her 2017 graduate research from San Jose State University on illegal dumping as an indicator of social disorder. Please welcome me in joining, please join me in welcoming Amory Brandt.
Thank you, Erin. So good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here to present to you all today. And as Erin explained, I'm currently an analyst with the City of San Jose, but everything I'll be presenting today is part of my research I completed as a graduate student at San Jose State University in 2017. So I'll be going over some brief background of my research on illegal dumping, and also what my study aimed to learn, how I collected and analyzed illegal dumping data, and some key takeaways from my research. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with this slide here, which shows some of our well-known causes of illegal dumping. And I wanted to add to this research by looking at some of these causes more with an equity lens. So I wanted to know if some communities were experiencing illegal dumping more than others, and to try to understand why. So I chose to look at illegal dumping through the social disorganization theory. And this theory was first proposed in 1942 by Shaw and McKay. It states that increased rates of crime are often found in socially disorganized neighborhoods. And although this theory was developed for things like common crimes we hear of like burglaries, I wanted to see if it also applied to the crime of illegal dumping. So a socially disorganized neighborhood is one that has high population turnover. The populations are speaking different languages and also experiencing poverty. So this theory relates to the characteristics of the neighborhood and not necessarily specific individuals. So although specific people may come and go within that neighborhood or that space, the crime continues steadily within that neighborhood or within that space. When a neighborhood is socially organized and not socially disorganized, it has strong social networks and communication that allows communities to self-correct and also in some cases even prevent crime. So for an example of self-correction, let's say you see your neighbor set out a couch on the sidewalk with a free sign on it. And in a socially organized neighborhood, you probably would have spoken to this person before. You would know your neighbor and you would know that you both speak the same language, and so you can communicate. So you'd feel comfortable approaching them and telling them, hey, there's other options to dispose of this couch. Here's some materials or information I know. But in a socially disorganized community, those two residents may not speak the same language. They may not feel comfortable approaching each other. Maybe one of them or both of them are new to the neighborhood, and so they have not met each other before. And so the ability to communicate about crime or self-correct is not really there. So I wanted to, through my study, look at the characteristics of social disorganization theory and relate that to the amount of illegal dumping that we saw or found in specific communities. So the aspects of social disorganization theory that I chose to look at, or basically the characteristics I chose to represent it, were income level, percent non-English speaking residents, and the amount of renters. And I also made some basic pie charts of items that were dumped, which we'll look at later. So we collected data at the census block group level. So when I refer to the neighborhood or the community or a physical space, we're talking about a census block group specifically for this study. And I chose this because census data is readily available at this level. So something like income or other demographic factors are easily accessible. So overall, we sampled 40 census block groups within the city of San Jose. I distributed those by income, so 10 within each income level of low, mid-high, and high. So this ended up being about 6% of the city. So it is a fairly small sample when you think about the whole area that the city of San Jose covers. So to collect illegal dumping data, we sampled all the city streets within each of the 40 census blocks. We would drive down all the streets and take geotagged photographs when we saw illegal dumping. And when you do that on a smartphone, it usually captures the GPS coordinates. So I was able to take all of those photographs with the GPS coordinates and map them according to their census block group. And within each photo, within each block group, I looked at all of the items in the photo and categorized them and converted them to a weight based on EPA weight conversion factors. So for example, a upholstered chair might weigh a certain amount, a tire weighs a certain amount, and I added all of those together for each photo within each block group. So what I ended up with was for each block group, a total amount of weight, and everything was normalized by the kilometers of street within that block group, just to make sure if we drove around more area in one area compared to another, that we had some way to normalize the data. So once I had all of my information by block group, or the amount of legal dumping by block group, I completed a linear regression for each of these demographic factors: income, percent non-English speaking, and percent renters. And then also just made some basic pie charts of the items we saw. So I'll go over those pie charts first. So this is a summary of all the items that we found over the 40 census block groups by weight. About 25% of it was furniture, 12% garbage bags, 11% appliances, 9% mattresses, and 7% yard trimmings. And the interesting thing about this chart, or these findings, were that a lot of these, for most of these materials, the city of San Jose has a process or a way to dispose of the items, but we were still seeing them on the street. Sorry, my labels didn't come through here. So this is a pie chart showing the amount of garbage dumped by block group. So within the low income block group, that's this red portion. The mid-low block group is this orange portion. And then mid-high and high are these other two pieces of the pie chart. So this is specifically for garbage. And what I wanted to show here was that garbage was found a lot more in low income block groups than it was in any of the other block groups. And this is significant because, as we know, most cities require everyone to have garbage service. But for this specific item, it was interesting that so much of it was found in low income areas and not in other income areas. And one theory we have for this was that likely in San Jose or other areas that have a high rate or high cost of living, we have multiple families living in one home that was meant to be single family. And so what can happen is if the families can't afford to upgrade their bin or don't know that that's an option, then they may run out of space very easily in their garbage bin. And so that would lead to some of it being dumped illegally. So the next part of the results was the linear regression. And this is where I compared the amount of illegal dumping per block group to the characteristics of social disorganization, like income, percent non-English speaking, and percent renters. And we found that income was negatively associated with the amount of illegal dumping in a neighborhood. So that meant that as income increased, there was less illegal dumping. As the percent non-English speaking residents increased, there was more illegal dumping. As the percent of renters increased, there was more illegal dumping. So all of these factors were statistically significant in the linear regression. So overall, the theory of social disorganization was supported because we saw significant relationships between the main factors of social disorganization. And one very interesting outcome of this also was kind of flipping the mindset that we usually have with illegal dumping, where we often focus on seeing those materials on the street as the problem. So illegal dumping itself is the problem that we're trying to solve. But what we can actually do is kind of flip that mindset where illegal dumping is a symptom of the problem, where there may be underlying things or underlying causes that are leading to this occurring. And that if we solve some of those underlying causes, it may actually help us deal with the symptom we're seeing. So just some basic education and outreach, I guess, resources that we can use when we're thinking about illegal dumping, especially in socially disorganized neighborhoods. We can provide outreach in multiple languages, knowing that in these areas, often many residents speak different languages. Also outreach often. So if you're usually signing a lease for a rental property, could be anywhere from monthly to 6 months to 1 year. And so sometimes we have high rate of population turnover, which means that we may need to outreach more often in some neighborhoods. Also, any work that will build communication and social networks will help socially disorganized communities. So working with neighborhood groups or neighborhood leaders to communicate information and trying to hold events or focus on communicating information through any type of social event. And then lastly, we know from this research that needs differ by community. So a lot of our solutions that we may come up with are kind of one policy that applies to a whole city, but often one solution or one policy may not work for every community out there. So no solution or program is one size fits all, and some communities may need some additional resources to help solve the problems. Thank you all, and I'll pass it back to you now, Erin. You're on mute, Erin.
Thanks, Amory. And thank you for that great presentation. It's always great to have you. And again, for those of you who are not members of the Illegal Dumping Task Force, Amory gave a full-size 45-minute presentation going in depth into all of this information. For the conference, we had to condense it a little bit today. And just for time, so we could fit in so many of these great speakers and panels. But we would encourage anybody who is interested in joining that task force so you can really go in depth and get a lot more interaction with our presenters and with the experts to join that task force. In order to join it, all you need to do is send me an email. It's erin.armstrong@acgov.org. The group, I have a question coming up in the chat right now, so I'm just going to answer it live. Anybody can join the task force. The task force is open to governments, that's cities, counties, state officials, state organizations. It's also open to businesses, nonprofits, community groups, and community members. And we encourage everybody who's interested in addressing illegal dumping, in learning about effective strategies to address illegal dumping, and in coordinating on statewide efforts to advocate for illegal dumping, to join us in those efforts. So thank you very much for that question, and we hope that everybody will join you. Again, that email is erin.armstrong@acgov.org, and I'll be posting that in the chat as well so that you don't have to try and remember. We are running a little bit ahead of time, and so I want to just go ahead and invite all of my panelists for our panel to come on board. Seems like we'll have a little bit of extra time for the panelists today, and we're very excited. So I'm going to welcome a couple people. First, I'd like to welcome James Harris, who is our panel host today. James is an Oakland, California native, an entrepreneur, an explorer, and former teacher and school board member, where he served 1 term as the vice president and 3 terms as president. He serves as trustee and co-chair of Youth Ventures, JPA, in Oakland Thrives Leadership Council, a collaboration of the County of Alameda, the City of Oakland, and the Unified School District, which is designed to secure and leverage resources to improve outcomes for children and youth. Welcome, James, who's going to be hosting our panel today. On the panel, we have some very exciting experts. Some of you have already heard from today. We have Jeff Becerra from Stop Waste. Welcome back, Jeff. It's good to have you here. We also have Ken Houston, son of Oakland. We saw that video that he posted today with some kids, and you can see him there live out on the street the way that Ken does. Ken is a lifelong community advocate and 3rd-generation Oaklander with 30 years of experience in the construction industry. He founded the Beautification Council, which is a community-based nonprofit organization that addresses public health and safety conditions that plague underserved communities. The Beautification Council's best practices on deterrence of blight were recognized in the 2015 United States Mayors Conference, and thereafter, the Beautification Council received grants and awards to address physical and visual cues that create some of these horrendous conditions. And Ken and the Beautification Council have also been an absolutely wonderful partner on the ground with the Alameda County illegal dumping pilot. I'd also like to welcome Amory Brandt back to the stage. We just heard from Amory and all of the excellent research that she's been doing. And so no need to reintroduce her. We just heard from her. And then finally, I would like to welcome Doug Cobalt to the stage. Doug has been talking trash for over 28 years. He is the executive director of the California Product Stewardship Council, or the CPSC, a position that he has held since August of 2018. Previously, he spent 18 years with the Sacramento County as a program manager, and over 2 years in consulting, and 5 years with the Yolo County as an operations manager. He has a degree in civil engineering with California State University, Chico, and currently serves as chair of the SWANA California chapter legislative task force, and vice chair of the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Council, or IDTAC. So welcome, Doug. I'm just gonna ask you to unmute and ask you to start your video so that you can join us. But at this point, I'm gonna pass it over to you, James, for an excellent conversation. And because we're running a little bit early, you have until 11:45. And one of the things I want to just include before we get started is that we do have that Q&A feature for all of our participants. Right now, we have 375 people who are joining us to watch. Welcome, everybody. It's so glad to have you here. Please go down into that Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen. You can post some comments in there, and we will try and work those comments into our conversation here today. So welcome this panel. This is now the panel on upstream solutions to illegal dumping. And James, I'm passing it over to you.
Aaron, thank you so much. Thank you for all of the panelists for taking time to join and participate. And thank you for, Ken, I'm tripping out because you showing us what's up, and we're gonna get to that. But really thank everybody for tuning in. It's amazing to see 374 people. Next time, I want there to be 574 and so on. This is such a critical issue. So I just want to thank Aaron, thank Supervisor Miley for making this opportunity, for putting this in our lap, a chance to discuss illegal dumping. And so we'll get started with the panel. You heard from Amory last, and I thought we could just start with some of us have talked to the folks out there before, but just if folks on the panel could talk about why this issue is important to them. Why does this matter to you, Doug, Ken, Amory, and Jeff? You've been doing this work for an incredibly long time. This is not work that people necessarily are drawn to. Most people try to run the other way when they see illegal dumping. So, perhaps Doug, you'd like to start us off since you've been doing this work for just 30 years. So why do you feel like it's important? This has been an important focal point of your work.
Be safe.
Thank you, James. And I just want to say I'm a proud member of the Alameda County Illegal Dumping Task Force, and also the IDTAC. And so I really enjoy this. And like you say, I've been doing this almost 30 years. And it is just amazes me every time I go out on the street and drive around and I see just piles of crap laying there that should have gone to a proper home, whether it been either to the landfill where it belongs, gets buried in the landfill, or maybe it was recyclable and should have been recycled. And in our state right now where we are with recycling, that's in crisis too. So that makes it even more difficult. But it just always amazes me to see all this blight and how it affects the communities, and how it affects especially communities that are disadvantaged, and they tend to be the ones that get dumped on. And then in our rural communities, to go be driving out there in a pristine area, and then you happen across a big illegal dumping area, and it's just disappointing, especially with my knowledge and my history of knowing how easy it is to get rid of this stuff and how easy it could be. And we've got people that are just taking shortcuts because of either laziness or greed. They just don't want to comply and help our environment. They want to harm our environment.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you, James. You know, for Stop Waste, I mentioned when we had the opportunity to have our section, we're a collection of public agencies. So we're represented by all the cities within the county itself, and some sanitary districts. And so we're representing essentially 1.7 or 1.8 million residents of Alameda County. And these are the communities that we live in, that we work in, and we want them to thrive and be desirable places to live, not just from Stop Waste, but all the public agencies that are represented in our organization. You know, I've worked in public agencies over the years, and I've seen the commitment of staff at cities and these other public agencies of really trying to make their communities a great place to live. And I think everyone knows here that illegal dumping is contributing to the opposite of that concept. So it's really something that, for me, I think for Stop Waste and the agencies that we represent, it's really about thriving communities that are places that we want to be in, you know, and that's where we're coming from, and we're happy to be a part of this, and hopefully, you know, helping find solutions to this issue that's been a problem for a number of years.
Right on. When we'll get into some solutions in a minute here, but thank you, Jeff. Amory, why are you? I mean, you've written this incredibly important report some years ago, back in your younger days. Why is this something that you continue to stay focused on and work toward solutions?
I think, like many of us, we have kind of a broader vision for these places and spaces that we all care about so much to just be really enjoyable and healthy. So not only our environment, but our communities. And, you know, I'm from San Jose, and just am so invested in this place, and really just see the vision of what, you know, our natural spaces and also our neighborhoods could be. So I think that's kind of my end goal. A little lofty and could take many years, but I think many of us are dedicated to that.
Right on. Yeah, it could take many years. And so there was the first flyer for illegal dumping. Anyone. It was like in Grecian times, there was a flyer that said, "Please stop littering." So I mean, this has been a human issue going back to before any of us can remember. So yeah, and hopefully we can talk about, you know, why this is the right time to actually stop it. But now we're going to turn to our man on the streets, Mr. Ken Houston. Ken, why did you do this work, man? Why are you so passionate about it? Ken, you and I talk a lot, but this has been your issue in Oakland. You've been such a leader. Why is it important for you, sir?
You know, that video you guys said, let me start it off like this, and thank you, James. I want to thank Nancy O'Malley, and I want to thank Nate. I want to thank you for empowering. And I speak right now. Everything is live. I'm talking to Melissa right now about the stolen car across from the school. Nancy O'Malley just put some cameras on this East Street from 98 to 105th that will change. And to answer your question, change the path to travel for our children. Right now, James, you probably saw in the news that schools are opening up, right? Kids are fresh, you know, because they've been locked up. Why should our kids have to come out, James, and walk to school through this? I mean, this right here is really not bad, because we've been working on this. It was an individual right here, James. I consider an encampment 2 living quarters. We had the individual that was blocking this sidewalk right here to relocate. So now we consider the guy down the street as a curbside resident. But however, children have to walk through used tampons. I mean, I'm walking right here. Trash, diapers, needles. Why should they have to walk through this trash? And I'm gonna walk right up here. It's so passionate. I'm so passionate about it, James, because I had to walk these same streets to go to Stonehurst Elementary. I walked these streets. I did not have to walk through this. This is embarrassing. This is unhealthy mentally, physically. Nancy said everything that everyone needed to hear. I mean, matter of fact, Aaron, all you guys already said what needed to be heard. I'm so passionate because you have homes across here. You have homes. And right across from here, it used to be tires and hazardous materials, contaminated materials. See, the neighbors stop and talk to us. That's one of my new project managers. And let me show you down here, James. And I'm gonna say this to you, and then I can let other people speak. But this is from my personal experience being on the ground on a daily basis. The community does not want this. Look, she's talking to my project manager right now about this. They embrace us. And the sheriff department, Lieutenant Gimbel, to Nancy O'Malley, to Elise, to Melissa, to Jeff, they have empowered the community to be able to come out here and do this, right? Because it's dangerous. We were out here in the purple tier, James, when it was massive. Now, I'm gonna show you one thing, and I'm gonna let you go. This
Well, don't
is the
leave,
path.
Ken. You gotta be here.
I'm
for
not
the
gonna go. Yeah. But I'm just gonna show you something. This I'm gonna give you a ground level. This is the path to travel of our children.
Yep.
Right there, James. And look at this. This was dumped. This is waste. You can see the filth in that, right? You can see the filth, James. And then we have this. They have to walk around this curbside resident, which I'm working with him right now. Hey, Kevin, I got his card. So let me, hey, what's up, man? How are you? This is a guy that just wanted to donate his time. Thank you for coming out. Go get a vest and you can start helping us. Yeah, do that. I'm on live. I'm passionate because this is a mental condition of our children. And I'm gonna say this in closing, and we can move on. If our children have a fresh mind right now coming out of this pandemic, James, coming out of this pandemic, why don't we give them a fresh start?
Yep.
So here it goes. We got a 3-day, right? Education, eradication, and enforcement. Watch how this place looks. On the third day, we're gonna clean it up. And Nancy, and I love the DA, I love the sheriff department, I love the county, because they extended the pilot to one of the most important areas where our children live, where our residents live. Look, you have homes across the street from this, but they have given up, James. People are giving up because it's dangerous, been threatened with guns. Yeah. But when you got that empowerment from the DA calling you up, Elisa called me up on the weekend. Ken, how you doing? This came up. I'll text and email Melissa on the week when she's off on Fridays. I know when she's off, right?
Wait, so let me call time. Ken, I think it's incredible.
I can go on, man. I can go on.
I know, but you're getting into solutions, and that's where we want to go. But okay. Before we talk about solutions, I think Ken has pointed to something that got me interested in this. In is there a possibility that we can get behind the children's need to actually have safe and clean and healthy pathways to school? Is that something that we can actually galvanize an effort around and create some change? Because, as you know, Ken, being out there, we're able to see what it looks like right now, and I simply can't believe it. Panelists, let me ask you this one question before we start talking about solutions. How do you? I think it was both Jeff and Doug. You talked about this happening in communities that we call underserved communities, rural communities. What in your work have you seen that says, you know what, I'm not gonna litter in Montclair, but I think it's okay to litter in East San Jose, like where no one goes. I'm not gonna litter in Piedmont, but I feel it's okay to litter in, you know, in a rural community where no one lives. What about the human condition says that's okay? What have you learned about just where this is happening, where it's acceptable, where it persists? Can you share any insight on that?
Jeff, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any personal insight per se. I would just say that, just speaking personally, I have seen illegal dumping proliferating to many communities where I hadn't seen it previously. And there's, you know, I think when we do get into solutions, you know, it needs to be a multi-pronged effort that includes a lot of folks. And some of the issues are really systemic issues that are really, really challenging. And I think that we're all sort of challenged with them, especially cities and things like that. You know, on the mindset issue, I think we've had examples of things in the past where people have changed their mindset. You know, even things like people picking up after their dogs. I've seen that change over the years. And part of it is just sort of what's acceptable to people in a community. But James, to specifically answer your question, I actually don't know is why people would choose to dump in one place versus another. You know, Supervisor Miley mentioned the broken window theory, and I think what we've seen as part of the illegal dumping pilot and really focusing on cleaning up a couple of specific communities, it's really been beneficial. It's obviously a lot of work to do that, but we have a model, I think, for what can work based on the pilot that was done by members of the task force here.
And James, thanks, Jeff. And I'll add on to it. I think there's the number of factors. I think primarily one is the respect for each other. Unfortunately, we have people that just don't respect themselves, don't respect their own community. They look at that highfalutin community and say, oh, you know, it's too clean, too nice. I might get caught. I think there's a lot more in community engagement there. You're going to have folks that are going to come out of their house seeing somebody illegally dump, and they're going to approach them and they're going to challenge them. And so, and in your less affluent communities, they're so used to getting, like you mentioned, you know, guns are like was mentioned. There's guns that come out maybe sometimes, and it's just I think it's a dynamic of the economic, socioeconomics of the communities that are being dumped on. The other thing that I've noticed that is really prevalent, and Supervisor Miley did touch on this absolutely with his broken glass scenario, is when illegal dumping starts, when that first pile shows up, if nothing is done about that, it grows exponentially. And I witnessed this firsthand with one of our local businesses that started up. This was a circle, kind of like a circle type of roadway that went around, and it was an underdeveloped, pretty much vacant lots area. And one entity formed a business there. But before they did, they had the entire street full and completely blocked. So they couldn't even use it themselves. So they took it upon themselves that company cleaned up that entire street, everything. And then every time something showed up there, they cleaned it up, or they accosted almost to a degree the folks that were doing it if they caught them. And lo and behold, that street has not been that way ever since. And so it does take a lot of community engagement to get folks to realize you're not going to dump in our location. You're not going to dump in our area. And then the other issue that is out there is just that, like I mentioned earlier, is the greed, and lack of convenience. I failed to mention lack of convenience because, for example, we do have businesses that, like was mentioned earlier, that are charging $150, but if it's going to cost me $125 to dump this material I just collected out of somebody's yard, am I really going to do all this work for $25? Probably not. You know, that's the unscrupulous nature of some of these folks, and they're going to go and illegally dump. The high cost of disposal attributes to that as well, but also just the lack of convenience, because a lot of times you've got apartment dwellers, for example. They're a transient type of living folk, and they may not be able to get their material to a transfer station or to a landfill. They may not have the single family bulky waste cleanup options that come with those homes. And so what are they left with? If they need to move out, or they may just illegally dump it because they don't have any way to get it to the landfill or don't want to take it to the landfill, and pay the cost. And so I think those are some of the dynamics that are at play here to cause folks to illegally dump, continually illegally dump, and just make a mess of our roadways and our communities.
Right on. Amory or Ken, anything to add there?
Yes, I do.
Oh, of course, Ken. Go ahead, but then we want to hear from Amory, and then we'll get into some solutions.
Yeah, you got to cut me off, James. Anytime, just cut me off, because I'll just go on and on and on. And this is from my experience and training under Andrew Johnstone, which Nancy O'Malley knows. He's the guru of graffiti vandalism and the visual cues of deterioration, crime prevention through environmental design. This right here, and I'm gonna show you this right here. And Nancy was just mentioning hazardous materials, right? We got this hazardous materials. We got that hazardous materials. We got flies. We got something that was here, right? I'm just gonna go real slow. Then you got more hazardous materials that our children have to walk through. They have to walk through this. Your cat, your dog will touch this. See, look at the dog. Look at the doggy. Your dog will walk through this, and then she said, "Good morning." Okay, good morning, baby. Let me get this back to me. Then that visual cue of deterioration, which can be, if it looks good, James, people go, oh, they tend to go like, wait, people in the community cares. People really care about this area. If it looks bad, they say, oh, people don't give a rip, right? However, there's other pieces to this, James, that people give up hope. And the reason why I focus on the children so much, and that's my main focus, James, is the children, because that's the future. That's the individuals that's going to lead our country, going to take over the city that I love, which is Oakland, right? I've seen children walk past this and throw down a wrapper. Think about that, James. They throw down a wrapper. They're being programmed to trash their own community, not knowing this visual cue is programming them, James.
Oh, that's fire. And so where you don't have that programming, in communities where you don't have that visual cue, you actually get a counter cue that says, wait a minute, I gotta wait until I get to a garbage can.
There it goes.
Yeah.
There it goes. You hit that head on the neck. So I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna move on, because you cut me off. This right here, when they walk through it, and you'll see on another video that if you walk through trash, from my experience, you'll think you're trash.
Yeah.
I'm an adult. I walk through this, and this takes so much out of me in the days and nights. It drains me because it's so much negativity. However, I'm gonna say this in closing, and you can pick it up. What I find is the community says, this is the city's problem. And I'm going to call City of Oakland out right now. They are doing a great job. Oakland Public Works is doing what they should do. Who's not doing it is the community, because it takes a community to make a city. Here we go, James. It takes a community to make a city. A city can't be a city without the community. So the community has a responsibility to help out the city of Oakland, because we, as the Beautification Council, have a public-private partnership right now that are working with the Lelands, the Franks, the Peter Dunlaps, to change the dynamics in these streets for our children. And that's why I'm gonna keep focusing on our children, James. Our children,
and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you calling out the community. Oakland. I wrote a. We're gonna move to Amory to get her perspective and start to talk about solutions. But City of Oakland, it's about 2,700 instances of illegal dumping reported every month. 2,700, and so saying that community plays a role in that. It's sometimes we don't want to say that. Sometimes we don't want to say it's not just the city's fault, that the community also plays a role in maintaining that. Amory, what do you think about any and all of this? If you don't want to beat a dead horse, what are some of the solutions that you've started to focus on if you don't want to get into kind of the why it happens in certain communities and not others.
I'll answer the previous question first before getting into solutions. Just emphasizing community, and I think it does obviously have a very big impact. And if we do look at things through a lens of something like social disorganization, it's that some communities are kind of start at a more difficult place than others. And when we do have really strong community ties and communication, there are characteristics of those neighborhoods, like they're not experiencing poverty, or everyone in the neighborhood owns their home. So those types of things really help neighborhoods form connections and communication and get access to resources, build knowledge about how city or even county resources work over time. So when we're talking about communities that are socially disorganized, it's that they're kind of starting at a different place. And I agree that things can get overwhelming. So like if you're already experiencing poverty, that's a very difficult place to be. And your focus really can't be on these other things. So yeah, just that all of our communities are in different places and need different amounts of support to get to the place where they're able to communicate and have kind of social norms. Like it's not okay to dump here. It's not okay to litter here. So everyone will need a different amount of support to get to where we want them to be.
And you want to start us off, Amory? And I think that's a very good way to look at it. Every community needs something different, and not every community starts, kind of what Ken was saying, at the same 0, right? Some are at a -8. And then how do you mitigate that? How do you get them to 0 and actually create a culture of cleanliness? What are you doing? San Jose is not far from open, if not more, excessive in terms of illegal dumping. What have been some of the effective strategies that you've seen work? What would you like to see happen to help solve this problem?
I think to get into a lot of specifics on this question, I'll have to defer to my colleagues Olympia Williams and Ed Ramirez, who'll be presenting tomorrow. So they're the ones who are really doing the on-the-ground work right now around illegal dumping. So hopefully they'll have some more information tomorrow. But related to my research specifically, and kind of more of like a personal example, I live in San Jose also, and I'm always surprised. I do tell my neighbor about the junk pickup program or bulky item pickup, and almost every neighbor I've told about it doesn't know about it. And I'm just so surprised because I feel like we've done a lot of work to publicize the program and get information out. But at the same time, I mean, I've lived in this unit for 3 years now, and I've had 3 different neighbors in the unit next to me. So that population turnover really does contribute to a loss of knowledge. When people move away to different cities or different places, they're losing the information they're learning. So just kind of focusing outreach, having a consistent communication strategy. So not just assuming that once is enough, you may need to send messages more consistently, and also offering things in multiple languages.
Excellent. So junk pickup awareness and consistent communication around it. Yeah, and I'm like you. I'm like, I seem to hear that message all the time. You get 2 free bulky waste pickups here in Oakland. But yeah, I talk to somebody, they're like, no, I have no access to that. And I'm like, wait, no, you do. So yeah, I totally agree. What about some of our veterans here? Doug and Jeff, what are some of the solutions that are working? What would you like to see happen to start to solve this problem?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I totally agree with what Amory's saying about, and you, James, about what's going on with the bulky waste cleanup. It's one tool in the toolbox. In Sacramento County, when I was there, we had 155,000 households, single family households we serviced, and we would only get about 10 to 15,000 calls per year for the once per year free service. It's, well, not free, but at no additional cost. It was buried in their rates, but and so it was amazing that folks wouldn't take advantage of that, because, and we had cheap, we ran the landfill and transfer station one of the only landfill and one of the transfer stations in the town, and we had cheap rates for people to bring their material in, $25 for a pickup load. It's cheap, but we would still get illegal dumping. And so that just shows there was only still just that one tool is not enough. There needs to be a lot of other tools in the toolbox to get us to where we need to go. We need to do things like, one, we need to educate people about how bad illegal dumping is. And I think this group, this task force, this group that's here today is doing a really good job of starting that. We need to show people what Ken's doing out there, what he's showing real live. I love this, just watching the streaming that he's doing out there and showing, one, how much effort it takes to clean that mess up. Look, and he's doing one street today. How long would it take him and his crew to clean up all the streets that are getting trashed in Oakland? Then broaden that to the state as a whole and go out into the rural areas where it costs so much to go out there and clean that mess up. And so we just need to do a much better job of showing our folks, our residents, our constituents here in California, this is bad. This is nasty stuff. Don't do this. You're going to harm us. You're going to harm our environment. You're harming our animals. Like Ken said, the dog that walks up and sniffs that bad stuff might come lick you at the next chance they get. And so you might get some stuff on you don't want. I think one of the things we're progressing on, like for mattresses, and I know mattresses is still a big problem in Alameda County as illegal disposal. The mattress program as a whole has been pretty effective. It's gotten a lot of communities as a whole to not have so many mattresses dumped. Now it goes with a lot of details in the program I won't get into here because we don't have enough time, but there are programs that are not a fault of MRC, just how the state law was written that cause Alameda County in particular to have issues still with illegal dumping of mattresses, even though there's a program to get rid of them for free. You can take your mattress to a location, a collection location, and dump it off for free. That was part of the law. So it just goes to show we need more programs like that. I saw a comment I really touched on earlier this morning about furniture. We need a bye-bye mattress program for furniture. Absolutely. Mattresses were the easy, low-hanging fruit because they're easy to recycle, relatively easy to recycle. They come apart fairly easily. They have a lot of recyclable materials in them. You started getting into furniture, it's a whole different world. And how's that going to be done? Who's going to do that? So we need to see if we can get folks that are hired specifically to clean up, that are they're registered. They need to be a business. They need a business license. They have to have a reason to exist and a reason to continue to exist and get paid to do the work they do. And that is through proper disposal, proper management of the materials. And you do that through licensing. I know the Supervisor Miley, I applaud him almost 2 years ago for trying to get the initiative going to get a kind of a statewide registration, so to speak, for all these cleanup companies, all these small mom and pop cleanup companies, to make sure that they are above board and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing instead of taking money and illegally dumping at the same time. And so I thought that was a great effort. Supervisor Miley, I think you should continue that effort, try to get that going again. I know you're listening. And so another thing is a lot of this stuff that Ken is picking up out there might actually be reusable. And could that be even slightly repaired and then put back out into commerce? Why should we be throwing everything away? Why can't we get some of this stuff actually up to reuse at a higher level? And then finally, we have a lot of great job training programs out there with the California Conservation Corps and the local conservation corps, where they can actually be funded through state funding and other funding, private funding, to actually go out and clean this up and get paid and trained on job skills and to promote a better economic condition for us and get them paying jobs. And so I think there's a lot that can be done. A lot of solutions are out there, but it's going to take us as a community. It takes a village, as you hear, to really get this problem solved. And I think this group, this statewide conference, I think, and rolling this out statewide really help that situation.
Doug, that is all. Your passion is coming out now, man. So more tools in the toolbox, couldn't agree more. Educating people about the problem, which is, as both Amory and I and you indicated, that's a challenge. People aren't educated enough. I didn't know about the free mattress pickup. I do know that I called to have my couch taken away and they told me it would be $250, to which I started breaking it down myself and like putting it in the garbage over time. But that's an incredible cost. Jeff, What do you think? You started to talk about solutions earlier. What are some solutions that you would like to see come into play? What are some things that can help solve this?
Yeah, I mean, it's even tied to one thing you just mentioned with the couch. Part of it's the cost, part of it's the convenience, you know. I just feel like we're more and more living in a culture of convenience. People want a really simple way to deal with this stuff. And Robin walked us through the resource tool. We're trying to make it easier for at least people to understand what is the proper way to dispose of something. But with a lot of those methods, there's still going to be some effort on behalf of the person who's getting rid of that item. And as much as we can make things as convenient as possible, I think that's got to be helpful. I mean, people are used to calling Uber Eats to get a meal delivered or a candy bar or something like that. And I think that they probably expect the same thing for wanting to get rid of a couch or something. And the trick there is that there are private companies that do that, but like you mentioned, it's not inexpensive. And so that becomes a really big barrier, that combination of convenience and cost. I do think that there's kind of a way to break out long-term and short-term solutions. The stuff that we talked about a lot today, the education and waste prevention, that's really a long-term play. I mean, we're really, you know, in it for years, especially when we're talking about working with students and getting them to create this, as Angelina mentioned, a regenerative mindset that they would apply it to other aspects of their life. That's going to take years to do that. In the short term, some of the things like Ken is working on, getting that stuff off the streets so that people don't see it and people don't expect that it's okay to do that. We need all those things happening together.
Hey, James, can I interrupt? I don't mean
It's
to,
your
but...
turn, Ken. You're not interrupting, my friend. I'm waiting to hear about the 3 E's.
Right. Let me share something with you, James.
Yep.
The school is right there. I'm going to point to the school, right? That's the school where the kids have to ball, where in the illegal dumping task force, we created a thing called micro cleaning, and that's what Chino is doing right now. He's micro cleaning where it looked like it never existed, right? But what I wanted to share with everyone is just look at this. Look at this. You walk into school and you see this word, graffiti vandalism, sick. Instead of, that's a negative word already with negative impacts of the illegal dumping. Sick. Oh, I'm sick. Sick means crazy in the streets, right? It doesn't mean sick as ill. It means sick. So they're walking down a street like this and they reading sick. Okay. Let me show you something else. All right. I'm gonna hop on top of this. I'm gonna be safe though. If you look down there, you'll see where they did sideshows. Look at it, swinging right where you have residential properties, right? So this car lost control. This truck lost control. Now think about our kids walking down the street. I'm trying to paint a picture. It hit this 1,500-pound block. Look, it came off and it knocked it, James, 30 feet down to right. Here, you can still see the square triangle, 30 feet. Now, what if that would have hit a house or hit a child? Because right down the street, and why I'm so passionate about this day, my mother was hit on the corner of 98th, and my godfather and my godmother was killed right down there. So what I'm saying is that that car hit this. It would have went into this man's business. So let's get back to the children. Let's get back to the children. I didn't have to walk through this, and they should not have to walk through this. So I'm on a mission, man. That's why I'm out here live and up front and real, because Supervisor Nate Miley, Elise Sandbatch, Nancy O'Malley, the Sheriff Department empowered us, and they took the chain off.
So tell me, Ken, you got 3 E's that you feel like will help solve this. And Doug, Jeff, and Amy actually preview what are those 3 E's and why are those essential components to solving it?
You got to have them all. Aaron said it. If you pull one piece, me and Bill from Argent Materials talked about this the other day. If you pull one of them out, it won't work. The education piece, you got to educate the children not to trash their own community. You got to educate the community to embrace the city of Oakland instead of putting them down, because they have a responsibility too. That education piece is so huge. Knock on the door, meet them, talk to them, and ask them to come out and help you. Let them see how it feels to clean up your own community. That's the education piece. The eradication. What's up, kid? All right, hold on. I'm on live. The eradication piece is so important because we talked about crime prevention through environmental design. If you do not clean it up, and Aaron said it, you got to do it fast. And it's not about cleaning up. It's about deterrence. And Supervisor Nate Miley got it. He got it. That's why he took it and ran with it. It's about deterring the problem. Because if you don't deter the problem, what happens, James? We become a trash service. Oakland is not built to be a trash service. Then you have the enforcement piece that I work with Elise Sandbach, Melissa, Jeff, Nancy's office daily on the weekends. That enforcement piece is not always, it's arresting. I talked to Jamaica. I'll call Jamaica from the EOs and say, Jamaica, this one ain't really worth prosecution. Can you go in and give them a ticket? And if we catch them, I'll have them to come out and clean it up themselves. We came up with something called VCA, Violators Corrective Action. This is all under Supervisor Nate Miley's leadership. We will find somebody that did it, have them to come out and clean up their own stuff. Now tell me you won't be embarrassed if you got to come out and clean up your stuff in front of all the neighbors. Tell me that ain't deterrence, right? Now, if you dump some hazardous materials and some contaminated materials in my children's path of travel, then I'm gonna call Nancy. I'm gonna call Elise. I'm gonna say this dude is out of control, right? So the 3 E's are very important to educate the community, the children, the people that are actually doing it also. Eradication, using crime prevention through environmental design. Aaron, we planted trees on Railroad. Look how beautiful that is. How beautiful that is. To see the neighbors embrace you. They love it. They come through. They gave everybody $20, but they didn't give me one. I'm mad. So those 3 E's, without them, will not work.
Right on, Ken. No, thank you for that. Folks, we got about 8 minutes. What would the panelists like to share? Like kind of final, you've given some incredible nuggets so far. I was particularly encouraged by the idea of job training, right? We have a higher unemployment than normal here in the state of California. We have a higher trash problem than normal. Maybe we could actually put people that need work to work solving the problem. I like that idea. There were some incredible solutions shared, the least of which is the 3 E's. What would each of you share at the end of this panel, knowing there's 2 days left in the conference? How do we get people fired up about this issue and willing to lend a hand? Because I believe if all 40 million California residents say, you know what, I care about this issue, we could solve it. What do you think? Final thoughts.
Sorry, we live and up front. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Jeff or Doug or Amory?
I would just say, having been part of the Alameda County Illegal Dumping Task Force for the last couple of years and seeing how that's grown, and being on this conference where I'm looking at the participant list and there's more than 300 people, there's a movement, I think, that's building that is, it will take collective work. Like, Stop Waste, we're actually a pretty small public agency. There's a few things I think that we're really good at. We want to continue to focus on those things, but we need to be working in conjunction with everyone else on a collective vision and a collective approach, all working together. And I just want to share an appreciation for Supervisor Miley and bringing us all together, because this is sort of the glue, and we need to figure out what are we actually doing together. And it was really encouraging to see the work of the pilot project done, because you had a clear difference between before that started and after that started. It's going to take a lot of work, continual work to do it. With the outreach that we've done at Stop Waste for a number of years, we have to be in it for the long term, you know, so it's a long-term commitment. So I think figuring out, we've got the people, obviously, with so many people on this conference, and the task force growing, and the problem is growing. You know, I've just seen it visually in the last couple of years. So connecting us all in some sort of a collective approach, I think is something that I'm inspired to keep working on as a result of this conference and being on that task force.
Right on. Thank you, Jeff. Doug, or Amy? That's just Ken. He's out there. But Doug or Amory, anything?
I'll let the ladies and gentlemen go. The lady and gentlemen go first. So
right on, right on. The good man, Amory.
Yeah, I mean, I really just want to second what Jeff's saying, that it's great that more attention is being brought to this. I think we will make progress. We are going through a very challenging time, and there's a lot of kind of systemic causes for a lot of the things we're seeing. And it still doesn't mean that we can't make progress, but I know it does feel overwhelming sometimes. So I hope that kind of success can be made on both fronts, you know, with our systemic causes for some of these things, and also out on the streets and trying to clean up what we see. So yeah, it's going to take a village to solve this, and it will take time. But I think if we're all coming together, we will make progress over time.
Right on. Thank you, Amory. Ken, did you want to? Doug has yielded the floor to the gentleman from East Oakland. Would you like to share some final thoughts? Well, you're on mute, Ken. Unmute.
Unmute. Am I unmuted now?
There you go. You're good. We hear you.
Yeah, that youngster was swinging his go-kart right here in the streets. You mentioned jobs. I want to give. I'm just the face of this, James. I'm just the guy that's out there that has the relationships. You got Heather, you got Maria, you got Jeff, you got James, you got the guys on the ground, and you mentioned jobs. You got. His name is Hans. It's Chino. He's to the left. Chino, Hans Nuzulu. He was homeless on the tracks for 3 years. He's back. He got a job. He's one of my team leaders. He's our homeless communication liaison. Then you got my boy John, which is a beast. He's from the 12th Street tent city. We teaching him how to do daily reports. We teaching him how to do ordering, because John called me this morning and said, Ken, we don't have enough rollers. Then we got Frank. Frank is donating his time. We hire the people that are mostly impacted. Then we have James, which is our new project manager, because I need help out in the street managing all the sites that we're doing now. So on the ground, we're teaching them, and we give them a stipend card. We give them a MasterCard stipend card. A MasterCard, see that? A MasterCard stipend card that pays them $17.19 an hour. That's big. All they have to do is go, and they can save on that stipend card. So we're creating change. When I say we, the Beautification Council, I'm the executive director, along with Nate's office, along with Nancy's office, along with the sheriff's office. We're creating change in the streets on different levels. What I mean is cleaning up the streets, making them a safe path of travel for our children, and embracing individuals that's impacted. They are part of it. John called me up the other day and said, hey, kid, he wasn't even working. He said, look at the micro clean I did on 12th Street. It was beautiful, right? Yeah. So I wanted to share that this is not just cleaning up the streets. This is deterring this public health, public safety, and like Supervisor Nate Miley, this is a crime against our community. And at that, we're killing 3 or 4 birds with one stone, impacting lives at this level, impacting lives at this level. I just wanted to share that with you and introduce the real players in the game. It's these guys. It's not me.
That is amazing. Thank you for introducing these 4 brothers. They can't hear me, but you tell them we love them, and that is exactly what the city needs, man. So we appreciate you, brothers, and keep up the good work. Thanks for holding us down. Doug, take us home, man.
All right.
What do you think?
My fellow panelists have done an awesome job here, and it's all about us all working together. What I've found as I've gotten heavily involved in the Alameda Task Force and also in the Illegal Dumping Technical Advisory Committee for Cal Recycle is there are a lot of folks doing a lot of good things, but they're all kind of doing them independently. I love how Supervisor Miley brought these folks together, start talking and sharing ideas. The ID TAC has been trying to do that for years, and they've done a great job. They're creating good tools, but we really need more emphasis on this. You're going to hear me talk about this tomorrow during the legislative update, but it's not going to be just community by community. We have to take this as a statewide effort. And in order to do that, there's got to be funding behind that. So that'll be one of the challenges. How do we get all of these groups together to share all these great ideas, all these great pilots they've been doing, and create a statewide program that could be implemented anywhere with a variety of different tools from the toolbox and have some funding, because as we know, local governments are struggling, and to try and put resources and funding towards something like this is going to be difficult for them when there's much bigger priorities to deal with. Not that this isn't a big priority, because it absolutely is, but they have to wrestle with so many other huge priorities. To try and deal with this too just makes it overwhelming for them. So we really need to see what we can do as the statewide effort and tie all this together and bring all these great tools together and make them available to every community.
I appreciate that my dog started freaking out, so I had to sequester the dog. But thank you for that, and thank you for the call to bring us all together. This has been an excellent panel, and what Ken said resonates not only on the job front, but I say let's do this for the children, right? Let's give them a safe way to get to and from school. Let's show them that every community is of equal value. And we can do that by coming together. Like Amory said, it will not happen overnight, but it can happen through persistence, through trust building, and through the recognition that our children deserve better. So just for Amory from the city of San Jose, Jeff from Stop Waste, Doug, the long-serving veteran from the Project Stewardship Council, and Ken Houston, our man on the streets, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the panel. And Nate Miley, thank you again for gathering people in the name of getting this one right, man. So I think I'm handing it back to either Aaron or Nate. I'm handing it back to Aaron. And,
there we are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you to all of our panelists. I know we're at a virtual conference, but if we could all just give these guys a round of applause for all of their expertise and for being here today. Thank you so much, and for answering all of the questions that we've had today. We've had over 70 questions come in through our Q&A feature, and we've been busy throughout the day making sure that they get answered. So our panelists, if you're able to stick around for just a few more minutes, check out if there's any more questions you can handle in there. That would be wonderful. But for now, thank you so much, and we'll dismiss all of you. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. It's now my great pleasure to welcome back Supervisor Nate Miley, who is the host of this conference. And as you've heard today, is really sort of the brains behind the operation when it comes to bringing all of these partners together on the ground, as well as in bringing this conference together for the inaugural statewide conference on illegal dumping. Supervisor Nate Miley, welcome back.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank the panel. Every time I listen to people talk about their efforts at addressing illegal dumping, I learn something. And I am no novice to this. I mean, I've been doing cleanups for 40, 50 years. Going back to the time when I was a Boy Scout. And I just tell you, every time I listen to folks, I learn something new. And I've learned a lot of new things today. And there are a few, I'm going to wrap this the first day up, and I have a lot to cover. So let me just get started. It was really great to hear from Stop Waste. I really liked their online tool, their guide. I mean, that was the first time hearing that guide. And I really appreciated hearing that and seeing that guide is just fantastic. I can't wait for my office and hopefully others to spread the word about that guide, because I really think that's going to be a useful tool. So fantastic. Then they once again hear about from Stop Waste the regenerative mindset. I hadn't heard of Literati for a long time. I was aware of them, but I hadn't heard of what they were up to. So the fact that you're working with them to try to utilize that more is just really fantastic as well. And I do support what you're saying in terms of that regenerative mindset, that the number one preventative tool is our young people. That's the number one preventative strategy, getting to our young people. And I know Ken Houston, he co-signed that by saying, our children are our future. And by working with our children, we can develop that sense of hope and develop that sense of a new possibilities for the future. So you don't have to be apologetic, Stop Waste, when you talk about the number one preventative strategy is our youth. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing around creating that regenerative mindset. So thank you. And then Avery, to hear once again the social determinants and how illegal dumping contributed to that. I really appreciate the work that you've done there and the social disorganization of neighborhoods, and the fact that you see that happening more so in terms of illegal dumping in communities where there's this language barrier and where you have more renters, and that you have less of it happening in communities that are more affluent. But it still happens. But I was really, really, once again, intrigued to see your presentation. Again, as Aaron pointed out, it was an abbreviated presentation, because I did see the full presentation when you presented to the total illegal dumping task force at one of our monthly meetings. So thanks again for that. And I think, once again, it should be pointed out what Avery said, a lot of the items that are being illegally dumped, these items could be properly disposed of, but they're still being illegally dumped. So once again, I think Avery was hitting this one thing. Is illegal dumping the problem, or is it symptomatic of a bigger problem? And I really think we need to keep put that into our mindset. Is illegal dumping the problem, or is illegal dumping a symptom of a larger type of problem? So thanks, Avery, for pointing that out to us. Then we get to the point of the fact that what Doug was pointing out, the fact that we need to look at the convenience, the lack of convenience, the fact that some people are just lazy and greedy, and that is causing some of the illegal dumping. And James helped to drive that home with our panel discussion, and Avery talked about places and spaces. Kenny was our man on the streets there, showing us firsthand some of the problems with illegal dumping. And I do think James mentioned that in Oakland alone, there are 2,700 calls to report illegal dumping per month. I just thought that figure was astonishing. 2,700 calls to report illegal dumping. My goodness. And then when we get to how do we create a culture of cleanliness, and James got the panel to talk about solutions. There is no one panacea. If we had a panacea, I think we would all pursue it, but there is no one panacea. But the panel talked about the fact that we have the consistency of communication in different languages. We need to show folks the cost of illegal dumping. And I think Nancy O'Malley talked about that as well. And the cost isn't just monetary costs, there's psychological costs, there are costs to quality of life. There's a lot of costs associated with illegal dumping. And obviously there's a monetary cost too, but there are many, many costs. And if we can get that across to maybe the broader populace, maybe that might help to reduce illegal dumping. Our efforts around trying to create a licensing permitting program for the unregulated haulers, job training, and Kenny pushed on that a lot too. And it was raised by Doug, the whole thing around job training opportunities and how we're utilizing formerly incarcerated and the homeless and offering them jobs to help address illegal dumping. And the fact that we need more tools in our toolbox. I think all of those were important messages. And the fact that we need to continue our education with that regenerative mindset. We need to increase the convenience so that people can stop illegally dumping, and it's more convenient for them to stop that as opposed to having excuses for illegally dumping. And then Kenny even hit on something I hadn't heard before, but he mentioned it, VCA, violator corrective action. Violator corrective action. So if you are going to illegally dump, as Nancy pointed out, there are going to be consequences for illegally dumping, and those consequences might not be, jail time, but it might be a fine, and that fine might also include going out and picking up what you dumped, and also providing community service and picking up illegally dumped items. So that violator corrective action, that's great. And then I think it was also pointed out from Stop Waste, the whole need for collective vision and a collective approach, because, trying to address illegal dumping, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And slow and steady wins the race. And I know we have to keep at this because it truly is a marathon. Because illegal dumping, it doesn't have to occur, but it is occurring. And it gets back to maybe what Avery was pointing out. Is illegal dumping the problem, or is it a symptom of a bigger problem? So I just want to do, a shout out to, I know some folks who are out there constantly working on illegal dumping. I know in San Jose, when they presented to us, they talked about cash for trash, how they were using some of their CARES Act money to address illegal dumping and doing the micro cleaning, as Kenny pointed out, in homeless encampments. Shout out to Forever Oakland, because I know they're out there every month working on illegal dumping and working with our unsheltered residents to help try to prevent their encampments and making them more sanitary and providing resources for them. And we'll get to more of that tomorrow when we talk about eradication. And I just want to once again thank our sponsors. Our title sponsor, California Waste Solutions, our education level sponsor, Waste Management, our eradication sponsor, AB&I Foundry, our enforcement level sponsor, Nixit Junk Removal, and the Mattress Recycling Council, and then our community sponsors, the Beautification Council and the California Product Stewardship Council. I also want to just point out, it was asked, how can we deal with hauler agreements? So because all of the franchise haulers have to enter into contracts with jurisdictions, in some cases it's cities, it's counties, and or it's special districts. If we have, and that was one thing we were pushing for too, if we can come up with some common contracting language that all jurisdictions model language that could be followed, and all of the hauler agreements that we have to enter into with these haulers have model language that addresses illegal dumping, that might help us too to try to deal with this comprehensively. So model language for hauler agreements, I think, is another important aspect of that, because I know there are a number of questions about hauler agreements. So I didn't want to leave that out today in terms of my wrap up. And the final thing is, this was Facebook Live. It was on Zoom today, but we had a big audience of nearly 375. And as I pointed out earlier, we've had over 600 people who have registered for the conference totally, and over the next 3 days. And we want to make sure that people continue to tune in, and you can always join the illegal dumping task force. As Aaron pointed out, it's not exclusive, it's inclusive. Anyone can participate. Just need to get your information into Aaron at aaron.armstrong@acgov.org. And this isn't, about Nate Miley. I'm just trying to be the catalyst to help drive this. This is about trying to address an issue that we can't address in our own silos. We've got to address it comprehensively across jurisdictional boundaries, all sectors of our society, because illegal dumping impacts all of us and it has no bounds. So that's what we're all about. We don't want to be exclusive. We want to be inclusive. So please get on board, let others know. And we hope to see all of you back tomorrow, along with others, for our day 2. And for day 2, you think day 1 was great with the education. Well, day 2 tomorrow with eradication, we'll talk about legislation. There'll be a whole block around the legislation. Then there'll be the community spotlight. And the community spotlight is going to be on the Alameda County illegal dumping pilot documentary. It's going to be premiered. The first time you get to see this in the whole world, the Alameda County illegal dumping pilot documentary. So stay tuned for that. I think, I've kind of seen it, and I was very impressed with it. And then there'll be a whole discussion around eradication. And we have a very enlightened panel of experts put together who will be talking about eradication efforts. And I just can't wait to hear that. And I think there's some very, very good things, great things have been done around eradication. I know down in LA, eradication in San Jose, we've had a lot of partners working with us on eradication all over the state. And so there's a lot of different things that are associated with eradication. So please stay tuned, come back for day 2, tell others to come back for day 2. If folks haven't registered, they can still register for the conference because the conference is free. So once again, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.